let's just say when you said thanks for resetting the matrix, you were probably joking, but the reality is there was such a hard reset that took place when we were in Egypt in May of 2018. It was so set in stone, as we were supposed to be there at that time doing that exact thing, that on the way out of the pyramid, if you watch the video, the last video that we took inside of the Great Pyramid at Giza, us exiting the King's Chamber, the camera pans around and you see COVID written in stone on the wall in graffiti.
It was weird. I can pull up that video here in just a second. But first of all, I want to say thank you for having us, Rex.
Yes.
No doubt about it. Last time, the last thing you said to us was thank you for resetting the Matrix. Mm-hmm. And I want to assure the audience out there that when we went and did our thing in Egypt, May 2018, we did not have this in mind. We did not have COVID lockdowns in mind. We did not have any of that. But the fact that the words, the Matrix Reset, the Great Reset, are on Time magazine. You know, last time we were on, I was kicking around the idea that what we did May in 2018, and it wasn't just Cherie and I, it was a lot of people, of people's combined energy, everybody at the BTV tribe, et cetera, et cetera. We went on this mission to Egypt, and we didn't know what we were going to do. We knew that we needed to do a ceremony within the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, and a couple of other temples as well, the Temple of Isis, Hatshepsut's temple. We didn't know it was going to be at that moment. We thought we were just going kind of a reconnaissance kind of mission, and that's it. Once we got there, we started touching the stones, and we started pulling information out of these stones, and then all the doors just opened for us. I mean, we got overnight access to the Great Pyramid. They literally locked us in there, just me and Cherie by ourselves. They even opened up the Queen's Chamber. They opened up the subterranean chamber, which has been closed off to the public for decades. And we've got HD video of all of that. We're running around, crazy, et cetera, et cetera. It was insane. So we did our ritual in the sarcophagus of the King's Chamber, and we came back. And actually, in a video before we went into the King's Chamber, I said, if this Matrix Reset thing is going to work, it's going to take about 3 to 5 years to manifest itself. And when we got up there into the ceremony, when we actually did our thing, moved the energies around, Cherie came back and she says, all right, it's going to be 4 minutes and 37-second countdown time. And it's roughly about 1 year here as for 1 minute out there in the real world, and I'll explain the Matrix here in just a few moments too. But it's funny how we're literally at the halfway point right now of our countdown clock, which is ending around December 2022, and we're seeing this kind of timeline splitting taking place right now. There's a positive and negative pull. People are trying to manifest a positive timeline. A negative timeline is trying to hijack that positive timeline, and so on and so forth. So it's interesting. And when I say, again, this is not what we expected, but in hindsight, it makes perfect sense for this to happen. So I know a lot of people probably thought that we were crazy when we were last time on the show. On our channel, we took the interview and we actually spliced all the footage that we talked about.
Right.
So it's different when you're actually seeing it. Mm-hmm. But now that we're living through it and we're looking back and going, oh my God, something amazing happened May of 2018 that started some kind of cycle, some kind of reset process of the Matrix. So feel free to jump in any time, but I mean, I can go on and on and on about what the Matrix actually is. So what I've come to realize through the many, many, many lifetimes I've been here, the many experiences that I've had here, and the gnosis that we've unlocked, and also backing it up with scientific evidence too. I mean, it's like everywhere you turn, it seems to, the consensus seems to be that we're living in a computer simulation. So when you think about it from that regard, all of a sudden everything starts to make sense. Astrology. Why does astrology work? My wife is a very, very, very talented astrologer. So much so that if she does a reading for me, and she does it on a daily basis, she does what's called transit charts. If I don't pay attention to those readings, what happens is I'll go out and I'll have a bad day. And then I'll read what she sent me in Skype in the morning, and everything that happened during the day, I could have avoided had I read my transits before I left the house. And so, I read the transits, and I've seen how many times the transits have been right and wrong based on on when I have not read them and read them in hindsight to know that it's really, really, really accurate. And I know a lot of your listeners out there, they're really into astrology and things like that. Well, when you think about astrology from a computer programming and computer simulation perspective, then realistically what we're looking at is we're looking at like a circuit board or different kinds of frequencies and changes that are happening within the matrix, so we can predict what's going to happen, especially on a quote-unquote global level, because you're having different types of energies and movements and things like that. So you know the frequency and the energy of what's going to happen on that particular day in your particular life, or even on a global level throughout the course of several months. So then you also take energy work. You know, a lot of people talk about energy healing. Shaman have been talking about this since the beginning of time. Energy healing is essentially just code work. I mean, you're moving around code. And when I realized going into these experiences that I was looking at energy, everybody always calls it energy, but then I realized, wait a minute, we're looking at code here. So then I started looking at it scientifically, and I realized that, like DNA, for example, it's all based on zeros and ones. They can actually create what's called Hachimochi DNA, which is an H-strand DNA. So they can take the DNA, they can manipulate it, they can change it, they can do all kinds of stuff with it because it's nothing but code. They even call it the DNA code. And as I was doing this research for this documentary that we're putting together, Resetting the Matrix, which we talked about last time we were on the show, but never got it together because it just, the gnosis is so ever evolving. I came across an article that said it was titled The Digital Nature of DNA. Now it gets even deeper than that though. So you've got, different DNA, you've got RNA, the way RNA talks to the DNA, you've got, and it's exactly like a computer system, exactly like a computer. The body's like a computer, the brain is like a computer processor. David Icke was talking about the body computer way back in 2010. It starts to bridge all of these gaps. Now here's the kicker. Professor Gates, Sylvester Gates, one of my favorite physicists. He studies string theory, and within string theory, he found a self-correcting computer code. He found an actual computer code. Now, in 2020, most people know what computer code is. It's not just like looking at the clouds and then seeing a bunny because the mind automatically makes whatever, it makes familiar objects. We're looking at something complex here that he found in the fabric of space-time, essentially in string theory itself, a self-correcting computer code. Not just any computer code, but it's an identifiable computer code written by a guy named Claude Shannon in the 1940s, who's the father of robotics. So now we have physicists coming out and saying that they're finding computer code. I wrote Professor Gates, asked him to come onto the show, and he was reluctant to because he said, I don't want to go along the computer theory, the computer simulation theory, et cetera, because that opens up a whole new dogma and a whole new religion, et cetera, et cetera. He was still very scientifically minded around it. We probably should have had him on the show, and I think we will have him on the show. To talk about it from his perspective, but he's recognized as code. Now, Elon Musk, of course, I'm sure you've heard Elon Musk talk about technology, and most people have played virtual reality, especially in 2020. I've got a virtual reality right in the other room. When you put it on, it's such an immersive experience. There's this game called, I don't remember, something Walk the Plank. I don't know if you've ever played this, but you're like on top of a building. It's like a 50, 60-story building, 100-story building. You're walking on this plank, and you feel like you're starting to fall off of it, even though you're in a room. And the graphics are all cartoonish as well, but the senses can be tricked so much so to where you really feel like you're falling. You're really feeling like you're about to fall. Well, if we assume any level of progression in our technology, whether it's 50 years or 50,000 years, what's going to happen is we're going to create a reality that's indistinguishable from this one. It's just looking at the progression of technology, it's going to happen sooner than later. There's another element to this too, the God helmet. I don't know if you're familiar with the God helmet, but The God Helmet is a device by Dr. Corian, I think is his name. And first they called it the Corian octopus, which I thought was really interesting. But the God Helmet, it's basically a helmet that you put on, and it sends different electromagnetic frequencies to the brain. So by changing those electromagnetic frequencies, what happens is people have encounters with aliens. They have encounters with angels. They feel people touching them. They feel people behind them. All of this, and this is all monitored in a scientific laboratory, and they're watching all these people.
What's it called again?
It's called the God Helmet.
Is that like a radionics type helmet?
Yes, exactly.
It uses electromagnetics to activate certain areas of the brain, and kind of like it's like pushing buttons on a computer. It really is. It's literally just stimulating parts of the brain associated with these mystical experiences, and people are having mystical experiences on demand with it. So
you combine all these technologies, virtual reality, God Helmet, manipulating brainwaves. Pretty soon we're going to create a reality that's indistinguishable from this one. Well, if the universe is as old as it is, what is the probability that we haven't already done so and already put ourselves in a computer simulation, in a machine essentially? And then all of a sudden it explains everything. It explains paranormal activity. It explains psychic ability. It explains literally everything, because we're watching programs playing out, and we're picking up on different energies. We're picking up on different codes. We're picking up on it all. So I've come to not only an understanding that we're in a computer simulation, but a gnosis, like a deep inner gnosis that we're in a computer system. But the computer system was infected with a virus, and it has been infected with a virus. And this virus has started to come up to the surface. And the virus hid in the background. It was this whole pizza-related stuff. I won't say that keyword, but people know what I'm talking about. This virus feeds on suffering. It feeds on fear. It feeds on all these negative emotions, like really, really, really dark suffering. Well, what happened is, after we went to Egypt, May of 2018, we did this whole, matrix reset process thing. What happened as a manifestation as a result of that? Because as above, so below, energy changes in the background reflect physically in this space right here. Well, now all of a sudden we have this COVID virus. Well, COVID, I think COVID is real, because I think Sheree and I both got it in March. It was nothing more than a light flu. But the main thing that COVID does is it feeds on fear. It's got everybody walking around with a mask. It's got everybody afraid of one another. It's got people standing 6 feet away from each other. Because I think what's happening is the virus is losing its power, so now it's looking for different power supplies. The virus was buried deep, and it's come up to the surface now during this whole matrix reset process. So it's really a mind virus, as it's always been. It's just now labeled a pandemic, and a physical pandemic. But with a 99.96% survival rate, why are we walking around with masks? Why are we shutting down businesses?
Right.
Why are we doing all of this?
The flu kills more people than that.
Yes. And I'm sorry for going on for so long, Rex. Let me hand it back over to you.
Dude, I'm glad you did, because check it out. Do you know what just happened? When you started talking about the matrix reset, and you made it up, or I made it before my computer just shut off, to the part of you're on like the third pyramid or the third megalith in Egypt that you talked about, and then all of a sudden my computer just went poof. And I'm like, wait a second. And then I'm pushing the button, and it's like, the battery was dead, but the battery was just at 91%, and then it went to 84%, and then it just was gone. And then luckily, check this out, in my mobile command center, I've got like a 100-pound freaking generator right here, so I can plug that stuff in. So I'm running, I'm grabbing, I'm plugging it in, and then so I plug it in, and then I push the button, and then the thing turns back on, and it's fine again, and then it resets. And I'm like, what's going on here? And so anyway, now my battery's showing at 77%, and it's just, dude, you brought thought back with you.
We're bringing the frequencies up and down and up and down. It's funny, because when we were in Egypt, we went to the Temple of Hatshepsut, and it was more like a charging station. It was weird. It recharged us when we did our ceremony there. But we took this little Bose unit with us, and when you turn it on, it says battery 100%. And we were playing it for about 5 hours. After about 5 hours, you turn it off, and right before it turns off, it should say battery 40%, or something like that. It last 6-7 hours tops.
Yeah.
After the whole ceremony, we turned it off and it said battery 100%. And we're like, wait a minute, what's going on
It
here?
hasn't been plugged in.
And we've literally been playing that for like 5 hours straight. We turn it back on, battery 100%. We go to the Great Pyramid. All of a sudden, all our devices start draining. And then the person who led us into the Great Pyramid said, yeah, the Great Pyramid has a tendency to do that. It like sucks like, devices energy from it. So
well, another interesting thing about the Temple of Hatshepsut that I think you forgot about, Chris, is that I kept seeing these crosses in certain places, and especially in this area that's known for sacrifices. It's where they would do sacrifices. And
animal sacrifices.
Yeah, animal sacrifices. Not human, but animal. And I saw, I kept seeing these crosses and then these lines. And I said, wait a second. And I asked the guy, the not archaeologist, but the Egyptologist who was with us, giving us permission to do this ceremony here. I asked him what it was, and he said, oh, it's a cross. It's a cross. He kept saying it's a cross. And I'm like, that doesn't feel right to me. And then I realized, wait a second, on one side you've got the plus sign, and the other side you've got a minus sign.
When you walk in, there's a cross on one side, and then there's just a line on the other side right when you walk into the sacrifice room.
Yeah.
It's a positive and negative.
It's literally telling you this is a battery.
It's a battery. It's a positive. It's a negative. We were like, whoa. I mean, just,
It blew us away.
But everything is frequency. Everything is frequency.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't matter whether you believe in computer simulation or not, if you're just old school shaman, if you're new age, et cetera, et cetera. It's all about frequency. Well, what is frequency? Frequency is zeros and ones. What's binary code? Binary code means that when a zero means power off, one means power on. The more zeros and ones in the way that they're lined up creates a frequency. A frequency is on, off, on, off, on, off.
Right.
The more on, the higher the frequency gets. The more off, the lower the frequency gets. So realistically, again, it all goes back to computer simulation. It all goes back right to binary code. Everything is frequency. Everything is based on zeros and ones.
Check this out. It's interesting because you brought up the synchronicity that you had out there in the pyramids. And then what could you tell me the name one more time? I'm going to write this down. I'm trying to keep up with y'all. There was which location was it that your phone did not drain at all?
This is the Temple of Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut, Hatch. No, Shuri's the speller.
Hatshepsut.
Okay, and you were there for 5 hours?
We were there for 5 hours doing our ceremony. We were there all day, but we were there for 5 hours
playing music
the entire time through this Bose it's like this little Bose device. The Temple of Hatshepsut's pretty interesting because it was never really used. It was like created and then buried. And when they excavated it in the 1950s, they found like everything was pristine in it. It was an anomaly. Like, where did this place come from? Hatshepsut was an interesting character because she was the only female pharaoh.
Right.
And she actually wore the female beard. She wore the
pharaonic beard.
Yeah, which is only for men. She was allowed into the inner sanctum of the priests.
Of the
she
temple,
made peace with everybody all around. I mean, she was a modern day orange leader. I'll just leave it at that. A peacemaker that was going around and making all these peace deals literally everywhere. And she was free trade with other countries. Everybody loved her. And she started out as a, what's that term called? Where it's like the placeholder.
Oh, a regent.
A regent. She
just had a regency at first.
She started out as a regent because the king had died. His son was like 6-7 years old, something
he was only
like that.
So
she was the regent until he became of age. Well, when he became of age, she took over because she had made such peace deals with everybody. She had made such deals with the priests, everything like that, that they didn't want her to leave. And they knew that he was going to come in and basically ruin all of that.
He was going to screw everything up
so
because of an
she
experience.
maintained power for quite some time and actually put on the pharaonic beard at that point, and you see her with the pharaonic beard. What's interesting too, though, is that all the pharaohs, they have their right foot forward, and every temple that we went to, they had their right foot forward. Hatshepsut, on the other hand, had her left foot forward.
Right.
So I don't know if that symbolizes anything, but even her foot was
the
different.
feminine aspect.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, because the left brain is creativity and feminine, and I'm sorry, the right brain is creativity and the feminine, while the left brain.
I might have that the other way. I think Hatshepsut had a right foot,
Yeah,
and the other ones had the left foot,
and the other ones had their left foot. Yeah, it was the left. Yeah.
Very cool.
You just solved the mystery in my head that I've been kicking around for years, Rex.
And the thing about Hatshepsut and what was her downfall was that, number one, she was too close to her advisor and architect, Senenmut. Senenmut was an architect. He was basically he was
the first Mason.
He was the first Freemason, really, because he was an architect that designed all the temples that he designed for her were built around Masonic principles of complete and total harmony with the universe, in building these based on where the stars are versus where you're actually building everything. It was the first one since the Great Pyramid that was really well done. It was I think it's really the only temple in between the time that the pyramids were built and the time that this was built. This was the only one that really shone as far as the Masonic work involved. Her relationship with him was a little bit too close, and it was just common knowledge, but nobody ever talked about it, that her daughter, who she was grooming to be the next pharaoh, I mean, she was that blatant about this. Her daughter, it was commonly thought that her father was Senenmut, that this Masonic architect was the father of her daughter, because she wasn't married. So, everybody just assumed, this is their daughter together, and she even appointed him as her daughter's tutor as a child, but that was part of her downfall, though, was later on, people have wondered if she was murdered, because she even had in the temple of Hatshepsut, it was supposed to be a burial temple for her, and it was just never used, which is, number one. Number two, there's steles where she's drinking milk directly from the teat of Hathor the cow, and that indicates, I'm even afraid of being poisoned, because she became really paranoid in her last years, and I think rightfully so. I think whenever you are a woman in a patriarchal kind of society, it doesn't matter how many good peace deals you make, there's always going to be underhandedness, and there's always going to be men that try to basically gang up on you and use whatever they can use against you to take you down and to take you out. And she realized this, and she ended up sending Senenmut away. And she lived basically by herself, and she was just paranoid for the rest of her life. And that is reflected in some of these steles of where she's saying, people have tried to poison me, everybody's trying to take me down. The gods are the only people I have on my side. And so I think she was murdered. And then what happened was her nephew was weak-minded, and he just basically followed whatever his advisors told him to do, which was terrible, because it ended up bringing Egypt down several notches economically and politically, and they just started weakening after that point, and they were ripe to be taken over by the Hyksos pharaohs, which her grandfather had fought really well and kept them at bay. She had kept them at bay, but then when the Hyksos pharaohs took over, that was really the death knell for Egypt, because they weren't able to be strong enough to defend themselves when Alexander the Great finally came along. When Alexander the Great finally came along, they were ripe for the picking. They were ready to be taken.
Well, can I jump in for a second? Because what they did is once this happened, they tried to erase her from history.
Yeah.
They went out and they tore down all of her stuff. I think that's maybe one of the reasons why this place was buried.
Oh yeah,
they were carving her face out of everywhere. You know, they were really trying to get rid of her, as they are with the orange leaders of
race people
other
from
times.
History. Cancel culture.
Cancel culture.
She got cancel cultured.
Got cancel cultured. Oh yeah,
Big
there
time.
you go.
Big time. Even the Temple of Hatshepsut, a lot of her steles that featured
She got attacked.
were.
She got hit by.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hello.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. So Egypt. It's such an interesting place, and with such interesting history. But I think realistically, what we're looking at is we're looking at like a motherboard, and we're looking at different points within the matrix where these pyramids are. They're on ley lines. You can access different things through these pyramids. Not all of them, because there's some of them that we built, not me and Cherie, but I mean we as in like us, the organic consciousness is what I call it.
Matrix programmers.
So here's the way that I define it. I guess real quick for your audience, I've come to realize that there's two different types of consciousness in this world. There's organic consciousness, and just like every other video game, there's also non-player character consciousness. And this also reflects through ancient books. All you have to do is just see. They didn't have the language that we have now. We have a different language, so we can communicate these ideas in a different way. They used to call it the dream world. Now we call it computer simulation. They used to call it the children of men and the children of light, like Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Now we call it NPC and organic consciousness. Helena Blavatsky called them those who had the divine spark and those who didn't have the divine spark. The Gnostics called it the psychics and the helics. There's always been a distinction between the two different types of consciousness that exist here in the Matrix. Now we just have computer terms to use. And I would say the Matrix is even more complex. We're just using the best language that we have right now to communicated, but we're at an interesting time where we can say, instead of God, artificial intelligence. Instead of the helix, for example, we say non-player characters. So it just like brings a little more understanding to the table here. But when I say we, I mean we as in the organic consciousness. And what I think that we are, most of us that are here that are tapped into this kind of information, that are opening up our consciousness, expanding our consciousness, we come from outside of the matrix, where I would say is Atlantis. Base reality would be Atlantis, I think, or at least if we didn't create a simulation within a simulation within a simulation, the last place we came from, which is Atlantis. So Atlantis really is a lost state of consciousness rather than a lost continent, in my humble opinion, and that's what I would call the quote-unquote real world, or at least one step beyond this matrix where we're trying to get back to. But non-player characters, they have to run a script, so they run all these different scripts, even religious stuff. You have the holy scriptures. Everything is a script that you have to run in your mind. An NPC doesn't have the ability to question the nature of reality in this dynamic, so obviously if you approach an NPC and say, hey, we're living in a computer simulation, they're going to say you're crazy, and it's their truth because they don't come from outside. They come from here. They were legitimately created here. So we have two very distinct truths now. So even truth has a duality to it. Everything has a duality, up and down, left and right, man and woman, night and day, etc., etc., etc. I hope I'm not going too deep.
Dude, this is Leak Project.
Okay.
Are you serious?
Okay.
No, not at all. No, it's very interesting to think about the duality of things. Now let's go back to the Matrix reset.
Okay.
And it's interesting. My friend Julian, he makes these great tinfoil hats that actually block 5G, and they block different EMF radiations. And we're going to send you out some hats also. You just go. But anyway, in 2018, he took a photograph of a Corona beer right next to the tinfoil hat. And he said, did I foresee a conspiracy here? Because you see a tinfoil hat, you think a conspiracy, right? So you got the Corona beer and the tinfoil hat right next to each other from 2018. And I'll send that later. He's got it up on his Facebook page. So I just thought, wow. we're all tapping into the Matrix here.
We prophesy without even understanding it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go back to some of my older music, and I'm listening to the lyrics and going, I can't believe I wrote
How
that.
did I know this?
And how did I know this? You know, people are finding all this stuff. I think the reason is because we have all of this knowledge inside of us. The organic consciousness does. We already have this knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I understand consciousness is like this. You have the ego, which is who we are right now. There's nothing wrong with ego. Toxic ego is completely different. The New Age would say you have to be egoless, egoless, egoless. But if you're egoless, then what are you? You're nothing. You're a doormat. You let people walk all over you. You're not sure of yourself. Where did this idea of I know one thing for sure and I know nothing, and that's that I know nothing comes from? At some point, we have to know something, in my humble opinion. That's where I've come after I've completed that loop of going, okay, I know nothing. Now it's like, oh, well, I finally figured something out. So we come to that point. But you have our egos, which we have to, you know, like Chris Geo would be my ego right now. And that's what we have to use to operate within the matrix. Below that is what I call raw consciousness. Who were we before? Who was I before I was Chris Geo? I was somebody in a past life. Who was I before that past life? Who was I before that past life? Before, going all the way back to the point of entry into this matrix. Who am I on that level? That's where the gnosis, in my humble opinion, resides. And so when people are doing stuff like that, like putting the tinfoil hat and the corona together, that's all coming out from, in my opinion, the raw consciousness. And with Hollywood, or at least Netflix, I don't want to say Hollywood, Netflix at the very least, it's hard to tell whether they take these very real ideas and then they embed them within these films in order to make it look silly, to go, oh, well, you just heard that in that film. Or if it's the fact that these directors or writers are tapping into their creative element and pulling this information out, thinking that they're writing a fictional story, but in actual fact, what they're doing is they're pulling out information that we all have within us. Then you get these like cult classics like Star Wars, all these different things where it's like, what's going on here in Star Wars? You have this kid, he's a farmer, he gets this consciousness, he goes through this consciousness awakening, he gets a light sword, he becomes a Jedi, and then he figures out that the whole universe is run by this artificial intelligence, which is the Death Star and Darth Vader. I mean, you know, that's exactly what we're talking about here. And it's funny because we brought all this out from inside of us. I mean, even this whole idea, I don't want to go too far off topic, but I had this experience in August of, I want to say 2017. It was during that eclipse. I don't know if you remember that eclipse that encompassed the entire.
I was there.
You were there.
Third degree parallel. I was watching it, man.
Okay.
I was in it.
You were in the eclipse. You remember that, okay?
Yeah.
We did a ceremony on that day, and I watched the eclipse. And what was happening is I saw this big octopus-like creature coming out of the moon. I mean, coming out of the eclipse, the sun actually, almost like creating a portal, and it was sprinkling like all of this code down on everything. And I was like, what the hell am I looking at? Some kind of interdimensional octopus? Are you kidding me? So I start talking about this. 3 months later, Stranger Things 2 comes out, and the whole basis of it is that there's this giant interdimensional octopus trying to get into this reality. Yep. And I'm like, okay, had I seen Stranger Things first? Okay, I get it. But we were talking about this 3 months before Stranger Things came out. Now, here's the kicker too, though, is they were writing it, while all this was going on. So we didn't know they were writing it, obviously, but it was already written because it takes time to make these things and write these things and come up with these concepts, et cetera, et cetera. Where are all these concepts coming from? Again, I would say it's going inside. When we create, we are creators. And when we're creators, we're tapping into our raw consciousness. And that's why all of this comes out in artwork. It comes out in music. It comes out in photography. It comes out in all of that.
Independent shows on Netflix, that aren't, corporate at all. They're basically third parties that are creating content and creating stories. It comes out when, like Chris said, when people are being
who's
creative.
on the board of Netflix, though? Sorry to interrupt, Sherry. I'm going to let you continue after this, but when you said it's all independent stuff, they still have a Borg at the top.
Yeah, and they do.
There's somebody on the board that you might not know who that is, but I'm not going to say. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Well, do you know why that is?
No. Hold on. I want to know why. I want to know
who it is too.
I'll tell you off air. Okay. And people probably already know. They're probably already saying in the comment section, who was president before Trump?
Oh,
are you kidding?
Oh,
no, I'm not.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
I can tell you why that is. I can tell you why that is.
Why is that?
Because these beings cannot create themselves. So they've always had to do this. Even back when Michelangelo was painting, and when all the great artists, Mozart was creating works of art in the form of music. They've always had to glean off of the talents and the creativity of people that are organic consciousness and do have that creativity, because they don't have it themselves. So they always have to glean off of other people. And what they've done, though, for the last 10,000 years, essentially, is limit what they don't like being put out, and then let everything else, fly freely, because they profit off of it. And you know who I'm talking about now. Certain sites are now basically coming out and saying, yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. Things that we don't like, we're not going to allow, and things that, are about puppies and, stuff like that, or how to wash your car better, we'll allow that all day long. But anything having to do with certain topics, we're just not allowing flat out.
Well, I mean,
because they love you guys. It's because they love you, and cleaning your car better is important. Okay, that's what you should be focusing on. Focus on the puppies. Focus on the unicorns. Focus on the invisible Bigfoot. Because the real problem's the invisible Bigfoot, and that's why the curfews are there, because Bigfoot comes out after 10 p.m. and he's invisible. And
he's going to give you coronavirus, too, on top of everything else.
Oh, yeah. He's totally contagious.
Yep. Because if pawpaw fruits can catch coronavirus, certainly Bigfoot can.
It's super contagious.
My YouTube has been full of hot chicks doing stretches and working out. Like, okay, I've been looking up like some workout videos, but not hot chicks working out and doing all of that. All of a sudden, it just switched a couple days ago. Like, it used to be filled up with like news. It used to be filled up with like orange stuff, all that stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, it just like flipped. And they're like, hey, pay attention to this. Here's some hot chicks doing splits, and here's some hot chicks doing stretches, and this and that, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, where did all this stuff come from?
Like this butt. Look at this butt.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you can even see it. It's just the programming runs deep.
Dude, I get 90% of my videos that I'm getting right now on YouTube recommends are like van conversions. But that makes sense, because I did look up like converting my van. So now they're just throwing everything at me. Van conversion, do this, do that, do this. But I get that. The algo's picked up on what I'm looking for. But if you look up one or two of those videos, you'll start...
Well, I bought a tonal. I don't know if you've heard of
these. Becky, look at her butt.
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't know if you heard of these tonal machines. It's like a home machine. You work out, all that stuff, etc. So I bought a tonal. So I was looking up tonal reviews legitimately, and I've been working out a little bit. I mean, I just started, so I haven't, really done much yet. But it's just weird how everything just like flipped, and it's like, no, don't pay attention to what's going on over here. Don't pay attention to what's going on over here. And they are propping up a lot of the BS, and there's a lot of BS out there. A lot of it. What was the most recent one? The monolith stuff. Everything popping up. We're here in Las Vegas. We did a live stream over at the monolith, and then a friend of mine.
I saw the one in Utah.
Did you go to the one in Utah?
Yeah, I got there before they took it out. Now that one was there since at least 2016, because they had Google photos from the satellite that you could see. So then a bunch of people started mimicking that and trying, and which is cool. That's fine. But dude, I think that there's let me jump in for a minute, because we were bringing up casting spells. The media is the most powerful spellcaster, because it taps into everybody that watches it. It hooks you. And if you're watching the news, then you're going to be force-fed what the news is throwing at you, and it's going to have an effect on you physically, mentally, and spiritually. And the first monolith that one in Utah, and there was a possibility that this gentleman by the name of John McCracken made that monolith. Well, everybody was talking about release the Kraken. You brought up the big giant octopus and your connection there. I was talking about the octopus in my videos also, but I was connecting it to like Enceladus out there by Saturn, and I was also connecting it to the Shahulu from H.P. Lovecraft, right? But I was talking about the Shahulu and these cosmic octopuses, and then everybody else is talking about the Kraken, and I'm thinking of a connection. You just connected the matrix dot there, another matrix sync. But then the monolith, that monolith seemed to be, if it was connected to John McCracken before he died, then it's like release the Kraken. right? Release the Kraken. And also the Star of Bethlehem's coming up, man. We got Saturn and Jupiter. I'm looking out right just a few minutes ago, and it was gorgeous. You can see how they're getting super close. You know what that means, don't you? There's going to be a new avatar. There's going to be a new Christ consciousness or something new that's going to be brought into the world to represent the age of Aquarius very soon. Very soon. Remember Bethlehem? Oh, Star of
That's
Bethlehem.
true.
Oh, Jesus. Right?
I think this time, though, instead of a Christ consciousness type of thing where we feel like we have to sacrifice ourselves for the good of everyone else, it's about pure understanding of what this reality is and who we are in it and who we are outside of it, if that applies. And I think that's what this, if there's an age of Aquarian, if there's an Aquarian type of energy shift that's occurring, it has to do with people realizing who they are, where they came from, and understanding what this reality really is. I think Christ consciousness is harmful overall to the consciousness of humanity in that it demands self-sacrifice at the expense of your own understanding, your own knowledge about the world, and it's basically saying it's the same as people saying everyone has to wear a mask every time they're within even 3 or 4 feet of each other, that you just have to do it for the good of everyone else. When in reality, you're actually depriving your body of antibodies that you need in order to fight off regular diseases. You know, we pass things back and forth to each other besides COVID that are beneficial bacteria and viruses that we need for our immune systems to stay healthy and for us to have the right amount of IgG and IgM antibodies. You can't just get these antibodies from yourself. You have to get them from everybody else. And it's the same concept of self-sacrifice for really no reason other than to try to make the world a better place and things like that. If you don't realize what this reality is, then there's no point to doing that. It's just sacrificing yourself.
Well, if I can add to that, I just lost my thought. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rex.
No, okay.
Here it is. Okay, this is something real quick. I went through this was something that I talked about, like, I don't know, 8 and 9 years ago. You know, we looked for messiahs, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Jesus in the age of Pisces was the fish. If we're moving into the age of Aquarius is the water bearer. So they had the messiah, the coming of the savior, et cetera, back then. Well, if the new savior comes and it's the water bearer, well, who's the water bearer?
Aquarius.
Poseidon. No, I'm just kidding. We are.
Yes,
we are.
Yeah, we are the water.
We're made
bearer.
up of what, like 90% water,
80 to 90% water. Yeah.
Babies are made up of like 98% water.
Mm-hmm.
We're the water bearers.
Yeah.
So now the savior is you, ladies and gentlemen.
Humanity in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got something for you. This is interesting because I love Enlil, although I fear Enlil because Enlil was, he was like, hey, humans, there's too many of them. Flood, great idea. But Enlil is the god of air, right? He is known as the god of the air. Especially if you go back and you read the ancient stuff, Enlil's connected to the god of the air.
And
Enlil's
the air, and Enki's the sea, right?
Yeah. Enki's the sea, Enlil's his brother, Enlil's the air. And if you look at the age of Aquarius being an air sign, does that and Jesus, I feel, is connected to Enki because of the water sign. If you look at the dual fishes, it's a water sign. So is this going back over to his brother Enlil? And if so, is Enlil going to drop the gauntlet again like he did thousands of years ago and clean house? I don't know.
I think you might be onto something. I never thought about it from that perspective. I've always tied in Enlil with Yahweh, the God of the Bible, because they have a lot of similarities. When they were in the garden, for example, at least according to the Lost Book of Enki, Enki was watching Titi and Adape, and they were playing in the garden. And Enlil walks in, and they're like, "Why are they running around playing in the garden? Why aren't they working in the Abzu?" And he's like, "Look at them. They have a divine spark in them. They have something different, et cetera, et cetera." And Enlil was like, "No, no, no. They need to go work, and they need to be slaves. Get them out of the garden, et cetera, et cetera." So I've always likened, that period of time to Enlil. But you raise a really great point, Rex. I gotta really think about that.
It's also another thing that if we go back to the separation, and now it seems like we're merging and there's this unity, maybe it will be a whole new evolution of Enlil, or it'll be a combination of Enlil and Enki because of the new age. It seems as if they're pushing us into transhumanism and bringing, taking the division into a unity. And if you go back and even look at the Freedom Tower now, right, as a symbolic gesture, they get rid of the duality, and then now you've got a single building there, the monolith, right, a single entity. It's supposed to be a single structure, a single stone, but the monolith they were showing us was actually that was the triad, was a three-sided monolith, which could actually mean Enki, Enlil, Anu, Enki, Enlil, Inanna, which is the Holy Mother Goddess, the Queen of Heaven. Because you're talking about the Bible and you're talking about Yahweh, and you can take a lot of these older tablets and Enlil and Enki is oftentimes people think Enki's the snake in the garden, but when they connect Lucifer with the Lord of the Air, that's wrong. Lucifer is connected with Venus, and Lucifer, I think, is a lady. And I think Lucifer is the scapegoat oftentimes, because Venus is connected to Lucifer as the Eastern Star.
The morning star, yeah.
The morning star. The Freemasons worship, oftentimes, people like, oh, the Freemasons worship Lucifer. That's not the way you think. It's Venus. Venus has a orbit that is a pentagram also, which is very, very unique, but it's a feminine energy, and it's a very powerful energy. If you look at the Statue of Liberty, that's Inanna. And so you look at the Catholic and the Vatican, and it's sun worship. It's the sun. The Jewish religion, I think, revolves around Saturn and has a connection with Saturn worship, but I think that's when Saturn, if you go back in the day, I think at one point Saturn was actually a star. I think there's enough evidence to show that that's a very real plausibility. But anyway, with all of this stuff that's going on right now, this new age that we are definitely going into, we've got this technology, we've got all these opportunities, but it's as if something's trying to get us all connected. And maybe when everybody's connected, then it creates a whole new consciousness, and it feels that we need to be.
We're still,
hey, there I am.
We're still here.
Okay, yeah, cool. I was like, what just happened?
No.
The reptiles just
we just had you on our screen. Now that you can see our screen, though, I'm wondering, have you ever seen this?
Yes.
Okay. So
off the left, but is that the pineal gland in the ears?
No. That's the female reproductive system.
Oh, hello.
So, yeah. So you have the Satanic ram's head, which is the female reproductive system. I'm sure you've seen the Eye of Horus, and being the inside of the brain. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. The pineal gland, or like the Eye of Horus, which is like this.
It's the thalamus. It's everything. Yeah. When you cut the brain in half, you get an Eye of Horus, essentially. So yeah, I think it goes back to the idea, in my opinion, that what you just said, that Lucifer is more of a feminine energy, but I would say like Lucifer. The Lucifer energy, in my opinion, is like wisdom. I mean, think about this from a different perspective here, and I'm not saying that this is the right perspective, it's just a different perspective. What if we were indeed slaves within the garden, and then the wisdom was what set us free? And if you look at the Lost Book of Enki, it basically says that Enki's like, hey, wait a minute, these aren't slaves, they have something different, they have a divine spark to them, etc., etc. And Enlil walks in, and he's like, no, they're slaves. And Enki was like, no, there's something different, and he gave them something different, because the first ones were created within clay pots, but the second ones were actually, Adape and Titi were actually created within Nersak's womb. So they actually had her essence to them as well. that divine spark essence to them. And then they were taken to Nibiru, and they were actually tricked. They were told not to drink or eat anything when they were on Nibiru, because if they did, they would have lived forever, which I thought was kind of, it was an agreement between Enki and Enlil, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole story behind those two. But what do you think about that?
Well, the Nibiru thing, see, I've not read but half a book of Zecharia Sitchin, and it was his 12th planet. I read half that book. I thought it was a pretty cool book. There's a couple things I didn't agree with about the May and a couple of things. However, I respect Sitchin, and I think that he brought a lot of recognition to the Anunnaki, which is wonderful. But people that are ignorant about the Anunnaki, they'll say, "Oh, Zecharia Sitchin made him up." No, he didn't. No, he didn't. I've got translations from the 1800s where scholars took these tablets that were found in archaeological digs, in Nippur and Iraq and in the Middle East that were 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years old. And these stories were telling of something that happened far before the tablets themselves. And the Enki and Ninmah, there's a story called Enki and Ninmah where they're making people. Enki's asleep in the Abzu. His mom wakes him up and she's like, "Get up. The gods are getting upset because they're doing all this work. And then, and we need you to make a replacement." So he's like, "All right." And so he goes and he gets his lady, and they're like, "Hey, let's drink some beer and make people." And so and this is a tablet from Nippur that I read translated via Oxford University. Anybody can go online and read this translation. It's called Enki and Ninmah. And so they're drinking beer and they're making people. And they're making mistakes along the way. Like some of them can't even stand upright. Some of them can't go to the bathroom. Some of them aren't male or female. But my favorite is when they make the idiot. And they're like, "What are we going to do with the idiot? What are we going to do with the idiot?" And Enki's like, "Let's give the idiot to the king." And I'm like, "Oh, that's where politics came from."
Okay, so that echoes a lot in the Lost Book of Enki. That's one of my favorites from Sitchin. A lot of people will say that Sitchin's translations are wrong, et cetera, and possibly so. I really don't know. I don't put too much stock.
Well, who gets 100% right all the time anyway?
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
if they're wrong, then they're wrong for the wrong reasons that people are saying it's wrong.
Well, I mean, it echoes the same story because there's a story in the Lost Book of Enki where they're actually in the laboratory, and Ninhursag and Enki were trying to make people, and he started creating them in clay pots, and exactly what you just said. He created one that couldn't walk. He created this. He created that. But according to the Lost Book of Enki, Enki was like, instead of destroying them or treating them as subhuman, or like not sentient, he gave them positions, like exactly what you just said with the idiot. Okay, well, let's give them to the king. Let's do this. Let's do that, et cetera, et cetera. And then Enki went in her sack and said, "I got an idea. How about we put these things inside of you?" And she's like, "No way." And he's like, "Come on, it's going to be great. It's going to be huge. You're going to love it. It's the best thing. Trust me. I know how to make people.
That's like if somebody told you,
I make the best people. Nobody makes people better than me." And she agreed. And so, yeah, that's where Adopt Antiti came from. But no, that book is really interesting.
And he's very persuasive.
Yeah.
He can be, yes.
He's very persuasive.
It runs in the family.
But I take that all as allegory. So, I mean, think about Nibiru, think about it again from a computer simulation perspective. I could be talking about, again, Atlantis, where we came from outside, coming into this reality here. But again, it's ancient people trying to communicate these ideas about computer simulation, about an outside world, about a world that doesn't exist here, but trying to communicate it with the best language that they possibly have there at that time. So now we have a different way to communicate.
And it would also make sense why Sitchin's translations, they weren't wrong. They were mistranslated because of a lack of understanding that these people were trying to relay concepts that were way beyond the technology that they had personally. And so if you don't have any understanding of how electricity works or how computers work or how a simulation works or virtual reality or virtual anything, if you don't have that understanding, then it's going to sound like magic tricks, or it's going to sound like miracles, or it's going to sound like something people came from the sky. If you put it under the lens of this is a computer simulation and these beings came from outside of the simulation into the simulation and created these other beings that were a more advanced psychological and intellectual nature and cognitive nature than the animals that they'd already created, then yeah, it would make sense that it would be said like that, and that Sitchin's translations would seem off the wall and like crazy talk, because it is, if you don't have the right lens to look at it through.
I mean, you can go into virtual reality. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just say this real quick. You can go into virtual reality right now and create a person. Like, there's programs that exist in order to do that, and you create a little
replica.
Yeah. You create a little thing in virtual reality. It walks around. It does this. It does that, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, so I had a dream before I ever even read any of the tablets, before I ever got into the Anunnaki, and this was years ago. I had a dream where I was actually in a laboratory and I was making people. And I was like, oops, I didn't make this one right. And so I had a dream that was very similar to that tablet, which I thought was bizarre, because going back and it was a very vivid dream. It was the most vivid dream that I'd ever had. I knew I was dreaming and I was manifesting. I was making these people as I was having this dream in this laboratory type setting. And then years later, I read that story and I'm like, whoa. And it took a few times to read the story before it kind of connected. But I feel like I was, I don't know. I don't feel like I was Enki, but I feel like I was kind of having a similar, like I was looking through an avatar or something and seeing what happened at one point or something. I don't know how to explain it, but it was pretty fun. It was pretty funny. But let's talk about this for a minute. Let's talk about how Terence McKenna said we are living in a symbiotic relationship with something that disguises itself as an extraterrestrial invasion so as not to alarm us. Now, if that doesn't alarm you, then I don't know what that's a pretty deep statement right there. So you're telling me that aliens aren't even aliens? So what the freak are aliens? So, but if we're in a simulation, like you said, and my friend Colleen Black, actually, she's an amazing artist. She had an experience, a shamanic experience, where she saw through the veil, beyond the veil, and she saw sound, like dripping colors, and then there were some areas that looked like they were dying. And it really spooked her out. She's like, we need to fix the matrix. I'm like, you're right, we do. We need to fix the matrix. So we could be in a simulation. However, I don't know if it is now. And then you could get into the light beings, right? The first beings that came to Earth were light beings. This was way before animals. The very first entities were light beings. Well, if you take a computer and you go into the computer as an avatar, you're like a light being, and then you manifest. So light is just condensed. Or matter is just condensed light. So that would make sense. However, I think that Saturn and the rings of Saturn and the moon and the positioning of the moon, the positioning of our sun and the rings of Saturn, I think and our carbon bodies, I think that this and the frequencies that the rings emit, I think that's the matrix that we're in. I think that's the simulation. And they're somehow manipulating that. Like they've tapped into the Birkeland current of Saturn, that's what made it a sun. And now you see the cube. And the cube reminds me of the Teflon, and the cube reminds me of the New Jerusalem that's going to descend from heaven. So I'm wondering if when it descends from heaven in Revelation, if it like detaches from Saturn, like, and then everybody gets assimilated. Hello.
That's pretty interesting. It reminds me of Hadi Bao. It's the pronunciation is kind of up in the air. This was back in 2012. Crow 777. I'm sure you're familiar with him. He was filming the moon, and he filmed what he said was the lunar wave, and he watched this wave go down the moon, and he filmed it multiple times. And we were talking to Brooks Agnew about this, and he brought up a really good point, and I wish Crow would have done this. Would take multiple cameras and film it simultaneously, and if every single one of those cameras picked it up, then we could eliminate the idea that it's just a camera anomaly. However, he filmed it so many times that he started to look at the moon, and this just went viral. You know, this whole lunar wave thing. And even David Icke, I mean, we had him back on in like 2010, and he was talking about the moon matrix, and we weren't anywhere nearly consciously as evolved as we are now, and we're just sitting back and going, I think Dave has lost his mind here a little bit. But realistically, though, David was really onto something back then. Hadi Bav supposedly is this Russian scientist that was disclosing all this information about how we're living inside of a matrix. They make program changes through the moon, through Saturn, through all these other different planetary things. And essentially what this matrix is that there's an intergalactic war taking place on the other side, and we're all basically prisoners here inside of this matrix. We're like POWs, and you like take the consciousness, you transfer it into light, because when you remove the consciousness from a body, it turns into light, digitize the consciousness, and throw it into the machine. So we all come in essentially as light beings. I don't necessarily agree with that whole analysis, but it's funny that other people are also talking about very similar things and talking about the moon and planets and causing, different changes and so on and so forth. And there's some cultures reportedly, I haven't been able to verify this, but I've heard this from enough people to say, there might be some truth to this. I just haven't been able to find a source. But there's some cultures that never reported the moon. Like the moon didn't exist during that time, during those cultures. And the moon, it dictates like women's menstrual cycles. It dictates the waves of the ocean. You get the term lunacy from the moon. The moon definitely has a big effect on us. And we did a shamanic ceremony on the super blood moon. It was like in 2017 or something like that. It was like this super blood moon. And then there was one other thing to it. Oh, and it was an eclipse at the same time. Super blood moon eclipse or something like that. And we're sitting outside expecting this big wonderful experience, and that moon just came down on us like Walmart lights, like we were under fluorescent lights. And I mean, it just made the experience like heavy, dense. We were like, we got to get in the house. Let's get out of this moonlight here. I mean, it was just coming down just hard on us. But there was definitely something to the moon energy for sure.
Oh, here's another new theory of mine. The moon itself is the original Anunnaki ark, right? They knew a catastrophe was going to happen, so they bring this massive ship and they place it where it needs to be, and they load it up with as much stuff as they can. Did Noah have an ark too? Probably, but we're talking an ark that could withstand a solar flare that would take the world back to the beginning as far as civilization goes. And there's plenty of evidence, man. I think that there's been, just in the past, there was one between 500 and 800 years ago, like a major cataclysm. And the history that they're telling us is they can rewrite history in 100 years, dude. Look at what they've done in 100 years. It's absolutely amazing. They're looking thousands of years ahead while most people are looking 10 years ahead. Well, most people are, going day to day. Yeah. And I get it. I mean, I get it.
Well, look at what's going on YouTube right now. I mean, there's a purge of information happening everywhere. They're trying to create to control the narrative, dictate everything, change history, so on and so forth. They do it all the time. I had a point I was going to bring up again. I lost my train of thought.
Well, it's like humanity's going through what the Egyptians called the weighing of the heart ceremony. And the weighing of the heart ceremony, what in ancient Egypt was essentially when a consciousness is finished with a life. It was a way to ascertain if you're ready to go home or to, go to what they called the field of reeds, is, like a heaven type of place where you're basically just rewarded indefinitely. It's a place of rest. And what would happen is you'd go through this ceremony where your heart would be weighed up against the feather of truth. It was the feather of Ma'at. And Ma'at she wasn't really a goddess as much as she was an idea of justice and truth and real justice, not the kind of justice that you hear about on the streets nowadays. It's the justice of facing up to who you are, not what you've done, but who you really are. When all of the ego is stripped away and when your soul is laid bare, and you really judge yourself. You really do. You judge yourself without any of the ego trying to say, oh, I'm not really like that, or, oh, well, I'm only like that because other people are like that. All of that falls away, and the only thing left is the pure truth of who you are, and that's weighed up against the feather of truth. And if your heart is heavier than that feather, or if it's lighter than that feather. That's another misconception about the weighing of the heart ceremony. You hear, if your heart is lighter than a feather. No, it has to be right in balance with truth. And you have to be completely 100% honest with yourself. And that's what that means. The weighing of the heart ceremony isn't about being lighthearted, because that'll get you, either one will get you thrown into the wheel of reincarnation. And that's symbolized by the alligator with the crocodile.
Amut. Is it Amut?
No. Yeah, it's Amit.
Amit.
Amit's symbol is on her forehead, and it's a swastika, which is the wheel of reincarnation. It's the wheel of balance. You're imbalanced. Whether it's your heart's lighter than a feather or heavier than a feather, you are out of balance and you're not ready to face up to who you really are. So you get thrown back into the wheel of reincarnation. And I think that's what's happening on a matrix level now. It's this entire universe is going through this process where it's having to admit the truth about how we are and the understanding of what we're in. And I think every time this happens, and I think we've gone through these cycles where this has happened before, and we've failed every time. And that's where you get Atlantis. That's where you get the flood story. That's where you get all these stories of cataclysm and destruction and catastrophe, which it means star destroying. Catastrophe means star destroying. When you have these periods where horrible, everything's wiped clean, like you said, it's not out of punishment. It's not because of overpopulation. It's nothing like that. It has to do with humanity not being ready to face the fact of what this place is and what it's for and who we are as human beings. And we're going through it again. And I'm hoping that this time we get it right and we are able to avoid that catastrophe. But I'm not sure.
Well, if I can jump in for a second, because this
Please.
is the thought that I had earlier in the Lost Book of Enki, and I really think you should read this, Rex. It's a great read. It talks about how they had to evacuate. The council met, and they knew Nibiru was going to come back. And they knew that this catastrophe was coming, and what they were asking themselves at the time is, do we tell the people? They had already created civilizations at that time. It was breakaway civilizations. They weren't really using them as slaves anymore at that point. They specifically created wars amongst them so they can keep them under control. They gave them beer and stuff like that to keep them under control as well. It's interesting that the book says that. But they all met, and the council decided, look, we already went against the creator of all's law by, first of all, coming to a planet that was underdeveloped. Number two, messing with the genetics of the hominoids that were on that planet. So we've already done two major violations against the against the creator of all, but it was out of necessity to save our own planet. So we can't do another violation of that. We have to leave the humans to their own fate. And Enki, well, it was Ninhursag actually. She went to Enki and she said, hey, you created these things. These things were created from my womb. You must save life, save life, save life. And so at that point, you get the whole arc story and everything like that. But it does talk about how they went into outer space during this whole catastrophe. And I wonder if that ties into what you were talking about, the moon. Maybe when they went to outer space, they didn't actually go up in ships, but maybe they actually built something like the moon at that point. And that's where they've been hiding out ever since. Going back to the other point, the destruction and the catastrophes, I wonder if this is a computer simulation, as I feel it to be. What if this is what happens? The consciousness of the people in this simulation, it has to get to a certain point. We start to tap into different energies, nuclear power, things like that. And if we can survive all of that with a consciousness that's elevated enough to care for one another, love one another, so on and so forth, we can transcend that and use those energies for the greater good. Whereas right now we're using those energies to blow each other up with. And taking it even a step further, what if the paradoxical catastrophic event is creating a simulation within a simulation? simulation. And we're coming up to that point right now where our technology is ahead of our consciousness. We have the ability to blow ourselves up, and we have the ability to create a simulation within a simulation as well. And it all seems to just be crumbling down on itself. And then if I can chime in one more point you made earlier, the Terence McKenna thing. Terence McKenna talked about time wave zero. And over the last year, we've been talking about how every timeline has been eliminated. Like, we've been jumping from one timeline to another, to another, to another, trying to find that optimal timeline. But we're getting to that point of singularity right now. Right, we're at the point of singularity. We said singularity is going to be around 2021. You know, we're going to see if we're going to go down the negative timeline or positive timeline, but there's going to be a singular timeline. And then all of a sudden, all these monoliths start popping up everywhere, which again goes back to what you were saying, the singularity. Everything is single. And then I never tied in Freedom Tower to it. But again, Freedom Tower, 9/11, the destruction of duality moving into a singular timeline once again. It's all making sense, all coming together. This is fascinating.
Zorg.
Yep.
I'm glad Zorg's with me, because Zorg actually told me the whole blueprint, all the plans to galactic domination. And Zorg's going to run in 2024 for intergalactic leader. It's going to be Zorg and Ozzy Stern. I think there's a great chance for intergalactic leader for those guys, because, you know, I mean, hello.
So can you do the Zorg thing again?
Well, let me get Zorg. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Back to you for a minute. I'll get Zorg to come on.
Because that sounded like a Zorgasm.
Oh, dude, you have no idea. You have no idea. Hold on a second. Oh, my.
So this is a fascinaking conversation.
Yes,
I didn't think it would
is.
go in this direction. We've been covering different stuff.
I'm glad it did.
Over at Beyond the Veil, and it's nice to get back into the esoteric stuff and the ancient stuff and
it
everything
really
like
is.
that. Oh, there's Zorg.
Makes the heart soar.
My name is Zorg. Ack. We come in peace. You leave in pieces. Silly earthlings. Oh, where's your face diapers? Wear your face diapers so I don't have to smell ya. I don't want to smell your breath. You all need to wear face diapers, and now China recommends wearing diapers also. So don't just wear a face diaper, wear a real diaper, and then that way. Oh, you silly earthlings. What is wrong with you? What have you become? Oh, you so...
Well, I can tell you one thing for sure, Zorg, is that you've evolved way beyond us. You have clearly your brain outside of your head. Most humans, unfortunately, don't even have half a brain. So we got to get to that level first. I think that's the main problem.
See, and also this blocks 5G radiation, as you can see. Ack. It has an EMF liner inside of it that will block 4G, 3G, 2G, 5G, but it won't block 69G.
Well, that's the one we want to keep, though. So that's the good one. That's the one we're shooting for, actually.
Yep.
That was freaking phenomenal. I love it. You know, my favorite thing, and we do this on Beyond the Veil all the time, is I inject a lot of humor into it, because we talk about such serious topics sometimes, and realistically, consciousness is a very serious topic. It's something that's very, very, very deep. And if we don't have that balance of keeping it light and making it fun, then, you know, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Not dull, psycho. I mean... Yeah, have you seen, by the way, you know, now that you mention that quote from The Shining, have you seen the sequel to The Shining, Dr. Sleep?
I watched a few minutes of it. Kristen watched the whole thing, and I could only take a few minutes of it. When that chick was like sucking the soul out of that little kid, I'm like, really, okay, dude, I'm done. No.
Oh,
yeah,
right. This is the pizza related stuff.
That is what it is.
Disclosure.
That
this
is what it is.
Exactly what's going on with the pizza related stuff.
Yeah, Chris saw this.
I watched it and I was like, because, we've been talking about this for years. I've seen it in the ayahuasca realm. I've seen the way the energy transfer works. I don't want to get too graphic.
Back in
I try not to. A lot of
2016.
people can't stomach
Yeah.
it. But this, I was shocked. I mean, this
Yeah.
is Stephen King basically saying this is how they do it. This is how they go after these kids. This is how they find them. They're looking for the light within them. They can see the
Right.
light, et cetera, et cetera. And in the film, I don't want to give too much away of it, but what happens is the guy's constantly drinking. And he's constantly drinking to try to shut his light down,
Yep.
because they're looking for him
To
and
dull his
they know
light.
they can feed off of him.
Right. And the only reason why he's been able to be undetected for his whole life wasn't so much that black man that was in the first movie was protecting him, so much as it was, as soon as he became old enough to do so, he just started drinking heavily. And that drinking was what dulled the light. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of people is when you're looking at drug addiction or alcoholism, and I'm not talking about drug use, or drinking socially. I'm talking about people who have a problem with it. A lot of it is about trying to shut that light off because for whatever reason, when they're their genuine selves, negative entities are attached or become attached to them too quickly. And we don't teach spirituality to our children. We teach religion, but we don't teach spirituality and how to protect yourself from negative entity attachments or negative people attaching themselves to you and basically psychic vampirism. We don't teach our children how to protect themselves against this. So the only thing that they've found helps with that and to keep that away from them is to use drugs or to drink to excess, and that shuts that light down. So but if you, going back to doctors,
before you go too far off, I want to chime in on this. The opposite is true though.
Right.
So people, the crack addicts, the meth addicts, all of that, they invite those entities within them.
Yes.
Here in Las Vegas, there's a pretty big problem in certain areas of Las Vegas. They've cleaned it up, but during COVID, it was really bad because nobody was cleaning up the streets.
Yeah.
They were all running loose. It was like Night of the Living Dead. And I'll watch them, and they walk around in circles sometimes. Sometimes they're just yelling at just nobody. I've seen them defecating in the streets, and something is wrong with them. And when and if you happen to encounter one of them, they have this energy to them that is like sulfur energy. It's the best way that I can describe it. They're possessed by something. So I just wanted to make a distinction between what you're talking about and that. Because in October, well, no, not October, August, September, I found myself just instinctively wanting to dim my light. I was smoking a ton of weed, and I don't know why. I was just smoking it like, I don't want to tap in, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. It just felt like something energetically around that time period was feeding on everybody, and I was shutting my light down. And then when I started talking about it on the show, people were like, holy crap, I've been doing the same thing. I've been smoking a lot of weed, I've been drinking, not in excess or anything like that, but there were years that went by without drinking. Now I have wine, I've got a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue downstairs. I was drinking Johnny Walker Blue, listening to Tool, and Cherie's like, what's going on here? And I'm like, I just feel like I have to dim my light just right now. But the time will come around December when it's got to turn back on again. And sure enough, around December, I haven't smoked weed in 3 weeks or something like that. It was just one of those things. Like, I knew it was time to bring it down. Now I know it's time to bring it back up again.
It's interesting that they call alcohol spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Somebody... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say you're doing something. You're now as far as dimming the light goes, that makes sense. The whatever you're putting in your body is like putting a goo around it, like a toxic sludge almost.
Right, and I think it has to do because there are dissenters that are saying I think it's the opposite, where people are more likely to be attached by negative entities when they drink. That's true for people who don't emit a lot of light energy naturally. People that, have they have certain gifts for things like divination or healing, being able to heal people, or being able to do astrology just right off the top of your head, or, people that have these creative gifts or divination gifts, they're emitting a huge amount of light naturally. And so these negative entities attach themselves so they can feed off that light. But then if you have somebody that doesn't have that creativity, doesn't really have a whole lot of spark to them, then what they are just a low energy feeding trough when they do ingest those chemicals and substances that bring their energy down. And, basically they become a buffet for different types of beings. And I think what Dr. Sleep is talking about are more, instead of negative entities in the sense of like demons and things like that, it's talking about negative entities in the form of humans that aren't really human. And it's, I don't know how much.
I can break it down real quick.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would agree on certain levels, because we can take it on many different levels here.
Yeah.
What we're dealing with here ultimately is vampirism. Whether it's spiritual vampirism, adrenochrome type stuff, Elizabeth Bathory type stuff, there seems to be an element within this matrix that feeds on whatever. I don't want to get too graphic, but you even go back to Roanoke. Remember the story of Roanoke? Mm-hmm. And they found all those coffins, and inside of the coffins, they found the bodies with stakes through them, and the whole colony just kind of disappeared.
Yep.
I think we've always had this reptilian type of element within this matrix.
Yeah.
And they are the hackers. They are the invaders.
Right.
They're the viruses. I think they're grays at a certain level, but they can shapeshift into different things. They can inhabit bodies as well, so they can take on actual avatars, but they're not supposed to be in this matrix. And so when we talk about virus in the matrix, this is what we're talking about. And back to what you were saying, aliens, I think it's much more plausible that these aliens are coming from somewhere much closer, underground, or perhaps interdimensionally.
Right.
Because coming from hundreds of thousands of billions of light years away doesn't make any sense. But if they're doing it interdimensionally, if they're right here, what does science say? That the next dimension is like 13 inches away from us or something like that? If they're literally 13 inches away from us, that makes much more sense in my humble opinion.
Right.
What do you think, Rex?
It does, but that's also in a sense, because I think that all the time. I'm like, it makes sense that they've got to be somewhere a lot closer. Maybe they're us in the past. They lived through a cataclysm or multitudes of cataclysms, and they've had to genetically change themselves, and they spend a lot of time on spaceships, but they're still from Earth. They're from the moon. They could be from Mars. I think that the Watchers actually came from Mars, because when you get into a lot of stuff in Egypt, and if you look at El Cairo in Egypt, the definition is Camp of Mars. And if you follow some of the stories, biblically speaking, I think it would make a lot of sense that even the Book of Enoch is describing people that came from Mars, and they're describing them as the fallen angels that have sex with earth women, so they get banned from heaven. Well, maybe they just got banned from their positions of wherever they're, where they're. The airline, Galactic Airlines, Mars One. You're not allowed to come back anymore because you got horny and had sex with Earth chicks. How could you, Mars One? And then he's like, dude, I'm sorry, man.
It's like, how can you not?
How can you not?
Well, again, in the Lost Book of Enki, that same story is repeated. They had the workers here, and they wanted companions, and so Enki was taking on human companions, and he had human wives, and everybody was looking at him like, "What's going on here?" And then
why can't we
both Enki and Enlil. Both of them, there's different stories of them seeing the younger ones bathing in the lake, and they were like, "Oh, I want to go check these out." And then they were all like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And there was a split, with Enki, Marduk. There was an issue. He was running off. He went through the pyramid. Supposedly, that's how the
he was hiding
smugglers.
in the pyramid.
That's why he was hiding in the Great Pyramid, so on and so forth. And then there was an agreement that Enki would leave in exchange for Marduk, and it had to do because of something Enlil did, and it was a forgiveness for something Enlil did in regards to that. And so there was all these different stories. But there was the Ajiji too. So the Anunnaki is more, at least in Sitchin's translations, is a title. It's not a race, but rather it's a title. Those who from heaven came to Earth. The Ajiji were stationed on Mars, and so they would take the gold from here, take it to Mars, weigh it on Mars, and then take it off to Nibiru. So these species who lived on Mars were actually called Ajiji. And then the Ajiji came down here, and they're like, "Hey, what's going on here? We're all up here on Mars by ourselves. We have no fun whatsoever. We have no women. We have nothing like that. Mars needs women." You know, I'm sure you've heard that title of that movie before. And they came down here and they saw that that Enki and all of them had human companions, and they wanted human companions too. So it's funny. All these stories are all echoing in so many different places.
Humans. It's the new black.
Yep.
Shut up. Oh, Enki. Well,
who can blame you? I mean, look at Cherie, for example. She's gorgeous. Human women are beautiful.
Yeah, they are. And I can say that myself, too. Especially when they have that light coming from them, you know, and they're, I don't know. I think that there's something special about humans that emit all of this light, that the, you know, beings that are interdimensional either want to take advantage of, or they want to partner up with it and mate with it. And that's essentially what was going on with the Ajiji, is that they needed companions, but I think it was more about you know, needing partners and needing to be able to create lives here instead of just being worker bees that, you know, live in a 1984 type of situation where you don't have a family, you don't have any real companions in your life, you just have work. And that could have been what that was. I don't know how I don't know how that whole thing works, you know, in the context of a simulation. We need to read the.
I think a lot of it is allegory, but you know, I do want to say this though. I mean, human women are beautiful, especially the ones with the bigger butts. I think Rex, you know, you look like a big butt kind of guy. Somebody who appreciates that, and I appreciate that. And the reason that I appreciate that is because if somebody likes big butts, I know that they cannot lie.
I can't even go there, man. Because,
I like.
What are we talking about? Zorg made me say it. Zorg's fault. Zorg.
It's a meme. It's a meme. It says, "I only trust people that like big butts because I know they cannot lie."
I know the song.
Okay.
I'm just playing it. I totally get it, dude. No, it's cool. I'm just having fun.
All right.
Yeah, you know, I mean, so imagine going to Antarctica and then you get, you know, you're there by yourself, and but you are from somewhere else, and then you know, your boss is like, "Now don't be getting cozy with those Nordic chicks, because, you know, you'll get yourself in trouble." And you're like, "Okay," and you have to sign a contract. You won't, but you're there and you're working and you're lonely, and you meet this beautiful Nordic gal that you fall in love with, and there you go. Now you're fired, and then years later, people write a biblical scripture about you, about how you're a fallen angel, and you gave this Nordic chick technology that came from this other place, and she wasn't going to tell anybody, but she got mad at you and she told somebody. So then it just all went downhill from there. And then you've got another Bible, and you've got another book of, you could call that the book of life, the book of life, right? Oops, sorry, I fell in love, and then things happen. But this is great, man. This is awesome. And I appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you guys. It's been a lot of fun, and it's getting kind of cold. I got 2.5 more hours to drive. I'm going to be dropping off the van tonight. So getting the airbag fixed or whatever, and then I'm getting it converted into a mobile command center that's got a place, you know, like sleep, and just pulling out a sleeping bag. Like, it'll actually have a bed back there.
Nice.
That's nice.
Okay, I want to clear something up because somebody got something seriously confused in the chat room here. Okay, I said when I appreciate Rex because he seems like a man that likes big butts. I wasn't saying that Rex has a big butt. I was saying that he seems like a man that appreciates big butts, and I appreciate that because I know that he cannot lie.
Yeah,
So
he wasn't
clearing that up
saying
in the
anything
chat room,
about
somebody was like, I think
Rex's
Chris is
butt.
going bisexual. I'm like, no, I wasn't saying it right. No. Let me clear that up right here, right now.
It's okay to be bisexual.
We were talking about
but he's
human
not.
women. Let's keep it in context.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Well, while we're pulling the jokes out, why not? The other day, I got Diamond invites us to go hang out with his friend, Diamond from Oppenheimer Ranch. They've got these new friends in town. I'm like, okay, that sounds fun. And so it's for Thanksgiving. We go down there. We meet Diamond's friend, and Diamond's with Leah, and I don't remember the gal's name, and she's I think she's single now, but she's got she's living with her 19-year-old son or whatever, and everything was not even awkward yet. Nothing was awkward. Things are fine. And then she asks where I'm from, and I'm like, well, I'm from Utah, and she got this weird look in her eyes. I'm thinking, oh, she's probably wondering if I'm Mormon, and I'm like, and I'm Mormon, and I was joking when I said this. I'm like, and I'm Mormon, and then I'm like, okay, she's thinking something, and then a lot of times growing up in Utah, if you would ever go on vacation and you went to somewhere else, be like, oh, you're from Utah, are you Mormon? And then they would ask the stupidest questions, like, oh, do you have more than one wife? Are you a polygamist? And so I was just like, I have this uncanny way to make things awkward. Like I can somehow I'll psychically pick something up in somebody, then I'll make a joke out of it. And then something tells me not to make a joke out of it, but I do anyway. I don't know if you ever had that happen to you, but it happens to me a lot. And so I'm like,
happens to me all the time.
And I'm Mormon. Yeah. I go, oh yeah, and I'm Mormon. And she goes, oh, okay. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm also, I'm a polygamist. I have more than one wife. And she's like, oh great. She's like, well, you should have brought him over. And I'm like, no, I'm just joking. And she's like, well, and then I was like, oh no, I was totally joking. And she's like, well, I come from a poly something or something, where we all, we all have sex with everybody. And Diamond walks over and goes, yeah, they have sex with transvestites and stuff. And he walks off, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And it's getting more and more awkward, right? And I don't care what somebody's sexual preference is, just the fact that I made that joke, and then out of all people that I'm going to make that joke, she's like, oh yeah,
you have to pick somebody that's polyamorous.
I was in Utah. I was walking around. I got two Utah things I want to throw at you real quick. I was walking around Utah, and I was with a female coworker, and we were going through the temple, and all the girls were looking at me. And I'm like, why are all the girls looking at me?
Yeah.
They were like checking me out. And I'm like, what's going on here? And she's like, well, you're only with one girl. They think you're available. Okay, but here's what I really wanted to throw at you. I had this weird dream. I'm in Utah, and my car breaks down. I pull over, and this family helps me. I go to their house, and this guy's working on my car. And then he walks up to me, and he just looks at me, and he goes, do you know anything about solipsism? And I said, no, I don't know what that is. And he says, neither do I. And I woke up and I looked it up. Are you familiar with solipsism? Solipsism is a philosophy that you are the only real person in your reality. And that's it. And everybody else is just a figment of your
imagination.
Reality.
Yeah.
But what the hell's going on here? This strange guy in this dream comes up to me and says, do you know anything about solipsism? I've never heard the term before, ever.
My theory is that it was a part of his brain talking to the active part of his brain. And it was basically like, because when he said, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is either. It's being honest, because it's still you that was asking that. It was just a different part of you that was asking that.
Where did this word solipsism come from, though? Why did this weird person in my dream? I mean, I guess it would be a paradox, because if we were really living in solipsism type of matrix where it's only one consciousness and everything else, then it had to be my own consciousness telling me something that I didn't know. It's weird. What do you make of that, Rex?
Okay, so for your circumstances, totally different. Like whoever is going to have that dream, it's going to have a certain meaning to that person. And I think it might have something to do with what you were doing the night before, and maybe something you watched on TV, or it just made you think about that form of identity. And it's going to have like you need to listen to yourself. You need to trust yourself. That's what that dream tells me. Trust your instincts, trust yourself. And even if something seems way out there and like something that's not real, well, it is real because it's connected to you somehow, and you need to figure out a way to work with it. But that's what I see. Trust your instincts. And I also, if I was to have that dream and I was to tell Kristen that dream, she would probably laugh and she would say, that's because you're a narcissist, Rex. You buy me a house right now.
I'm
So
sure
Kristen calls you a narcissist too?
I'm surprised Sherry didn't say that.
She does say things like, "Okay, Rex, now
She's
now it's my
diagnosed me.
turn."
She's diagnosed me as a narcissist, and so I said, "Okay, let's see." And I took the narcissist test, and I came out with
Well, a narcissist-
1 point out of 20. And she took it, and she got 3 points out of 20. So,
Hello.
Yeah, but I answered honestly.
I answered honestly too. You were right there. I was going through the answers with you, and I was like, Anyways, man, this has been phenomenal.
so
I do
much
want to
fun.
leave your audience with this though. We are in the middle of the Matrix reset. December 2022 is, in my opinion, where the clock ends. So we're at the halfway point right now. I don't know what's going to happen in December 2022. I can tell you this for sure. I did know what was going to happen in May of 2018 at the Great Pyramid. I thought that when I went into the experience, the Great Pyramid was going to be like this booster rocket. It was going to boost me out of the Matrix, all this stuff. Experience turned out totally different than what I expected. I expected to come out glowing and going, "Oh, my children, look how, et cetera, et cetera." I went through PTSD afterwards.
Yeah, you did.
I went through this
We
whole,
both did.
mental turmoil trying to reintegrate into the Matrix. So nothing that Chris Geo imagines ever turns out into what the actual outcome actually is.
Experiences, yeah.
The experience is, because on an ancient soul level, I know, but the Chris Geo mind gets in the way a lot. So I can't tell you what's going to happen between now and December 2022. All I can say is that it's up to each and every one of you to manifest the reality that you want.
Absolutely.
I think that's what it comes down to. Maybe the timeline of singularity is all dependent on each and every one of you and what you want to manifest for your optimal timeline.
Right on. And I wanted to just say one thing too. As far as being the change you want to see, that is so important right now, because if you can actually put into action what you want to see, even if it's at a micro level, it will have incredible results. So keep doing that and focus on that. And also, I'm a fan of Netflix, right? I mean, I do like Netflix, and you are right. There's a lot of independent opportunities there with Netflix. And I was kind of poking fun. And first of all, I don't have anything against President Obama, right? I just thought it was funny that a lot of people, that somebody of that stature would be in a position of that level, right? Like, who would act like, really? The former president's now with Netflix? It's like, wow, politics are everywhere. So that's kind of where I was going with that. It seems like it's very difficult to get out of holes of, politics, no matter what. Even with independent, people can go in there independent, but then once it gets to the very top level, then what?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I mean, the only place you're going to find real truth, realistically, is leakproject.com and beyondtheveilradio.com.
Yeah,
That's
TFR
it.
Live.
That's the last bastions of truth, tfrlive.com as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're just a big live action role playing game over at Leak Project. For entertainment purposes only.
Well, no, it's
Just
not.
coincidences.
It's not just about that. It's about, okay, if they're going to take politics,
Sorry, I muted you.
keep muting.
I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button.
You just muted shit.
Twice in a row. If they're going to involve themselves into other things besides politics, then we can talk about politics. We can discuss these things in the context of they're going outside of the bounds of what they're asking us not to go outside the bounds of. So I think it's totally fair at this point to freely discuss these things, because they're not sticking to their own playing field. They're trying to affect all playing fields and make everything political.
And they're putting it in your face.
And they're
too.
putting it right in your face.
Do as I say, not as I do. Again, I don't want to get political, but if you see what happened with some of these governors, as soon as they do these totalitarian lockdown orders, they go and do the opposite. I think it's by design to show you it's for you, it's not for them.
Right.
But realistically, everything's upside down. We have the power. We create reality.
Exactly.
Our consciousness creates reality. The way we think, our actions, et cetera, we have the power we always have. It's time to take it back.
They wouldn't care so much about mind controlling us and affecting our reality and suppressing our speech and all of that if we didn't create reality with the words that we speak and the thoughts that we have.
And as the people in the chat room are saying, Zorg 2020.
Nice. Uh-oh.
Just remember, folks, snowflakes' lives matter.
Yep.
And before we forget, this is really important. Watch out for the invisible Bigfoots. And if you ride a unicorn, ride it backwards because the media said so. That'll protect you. Wear your face diaper. 12 feet distance.
Yep, exactly.
We love you, Rex. This has
Love
been
you, man.
freaking awesome.
This has been great. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you. Love you guys.
Let's do it
Peace
again
out.
soon.
Love you too.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Oh, that was a lot of fun.
That was a
I'm
lot
glad
of
we finally
fun.
got to connect with Rex. So
Yeah.
we'll get to some BTV stuff since we are here. 2 videos have been taken off of YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I'm re-editing them though, and I'm going to re-upload them
Mm-hmm.
because they said we can't talk about the 2020 election specifically in the United States. So we can talk about the Sith. We can talk about the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about the I don't know, I got clips
The Death
here.
Star and the lightsabers. And
Okay, so we had here I've got some sound bites here for the editing that I'm doing for the other shows. The last one was 4 hours long.
I need to take a quick
so
break.
instead of saying one of the party's names, we'll just say
Brain dead zombie.
okay.
Brain
so
dead zombie. Brain dead zombie.
okay, so there's one. Instead of saying irregularities or anything else like that, we just say.
Camel toe Harris.
Oh wait, no, that's the wrong one.
Camel toe Harris.
Hold on, why is it playing that one?
Camel toe Harris.
I think.
I haven't even heard
Harris.
some of
Hold on.
these.
Camel toe Harris.
Why are they all Why? Hold on, I'm playing different ones.
Camel toe Harris.
I think it's stuck.
I think it's stuck.
I might
too.
have done something wrong and saved it wrong. But anyways, yeah.
Why don't we take a quick break while you work that out? Because I haven't been able to
Camel toe Harris.
take a quick break.
Every single one of these files is playing the exact same one.
Uh-oh.
I did something wrong here. But anyways, so we'll talk about lightsaber irregularities. I think that, when you're talking about the Jedi and you're talking about the Sith, there's definitely a lot of lightsaber irregularities, a lot of lightsabers that malfunctioned. You have brain dead zombies walking around everywhere and, Emperor Palpatine and so on and so forth. So we'll get more into that here in just a second. I guess I will play this quick clip here.
Because we're not going to censor ourselves.
Yeah, and we'll get into some Star Wars stuff. So
Yeah.
We'll
get into some Star Wars stuff on the other side.
Yep. We'll be right back. Give you guys a little example of, we just did a great 4-hour show with Lucky. And you can see it up on the screen there. I'm editing it right now. I'm going to give you a couple examples of how it's being edited just so you guys can get a little kick out of it. So, so far, it's going to take me a long time because it was a 4-hour show, but here you go. Interesting game as far as the
Tatooine
situation goes.
Yes.
Okay, so for those of you, there's a game being played here. And it's a really, really, really interesting game as far as the
Tatooine
situation goes.
Yes.
Okay, so for those of you who aren't familiar, which I'm sure everybody is by now,
Tatooine.
it's filed this huge lawsuit against
Yes.
4 states. So within these 4 states, so what happened is they sued because there was a lot of
Lightsaber irregularities.
it's just like there are we have YouTube irregularities here. Our last video that we did a couple nights ago, people got cut off midstream watching it,
Right.
and it's stuck on private, and I can't change the title, I can't change this description. It was just a glitch. That's it. All right, I'm gonna fast forward to more of the funny parts here.
And tell your friends, email your friends and say, we're on right now. And get the word passed.
Yeah,
You know?
So this huge
Tatooine.
lawsuit
Yes.
that happened,
Okay.
that we talked about on the last show. It was a great show. It was everybody was watching. It was going, wow, this is such a great show, and then just poof, gone. Just
Yep.
like that. So what happened is all these states went and they said, hey, this isn't fair. Okay, these states are
Ran free and fair elections.
and realistically, we're only talking about a few cities. We're talking about Detroit. We're talking about Atlanta. We're talking about a few
Philadelphia.
cities
Yep.
that all, if they turned, they would turn the whole state. And we're talking about a margin of like 20,000. And in some cases, I think it's Arizona, like 4,000. So we have very, very, very small margins here. But here's the thing, too.
The Sith.
We got 81 million
Lightsabers.
and
The Jedi.
got 75 million, which is the most
Lightsabers.
that any president has gotten in
Star Wars history.
period. And then
The Sith.
Right.
got 81 million. Okay, but there was only what was it, like 153 million registered?
Lightsabers.
Right.
And the total of just 156 million?
Right. So where did those extra 3 come?
Human error or a glitch.
Or the zombies got back up out of the graves and...
Well, in the end times, the Bible does say the dead will rise.
Rattled their lightsabers.
So, I mean, it's all prophecy playing out right here, now.
I got to say something. We just drove through, let's see, Tennessee, of course, Oklahoma, Arkansas, not in this order, mind you. And we went through Arizona. Okay. Now, on this trip, we only came across one person who was pro
Sith.
and that was because they were DACA. They personally were DACA.
My neighbor down the street had a
Sith yard sign.
and my next door neighbor, the one I was just telling you about,
Yes.
she came. Chris, did you see our neighbor? I said the one with
The Sith yard sign.
yeah. I said I know. I can't believe that. Don't let your kids trick or treat at that house.
Oh, no. Because they're going to give out edibles.
No, because they're gonna grope them.
Right? Sniff them.
Just give them like, just
You smell good, kid. Oh, yuck. But no, seriously, everybody was pro
Jedi.
Okay. We saw billboards for,
The Sith.
okay. And it was very funny how I saw that. Never saw any billboards for
The Sith.
in Tennessee. Okay.
Did you see the video where
The Sith recruiters.
came to my house?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they know better than to do that out in Tennessee.
They came to my house.
How dare they?
I was registered as a
Brain dead zombie.
because I've never voted. So see, me never having voted, I've probably voted
Brain dead zombie.
every election up to this point. Mm-hmm. Because that's how it works.
That's how it works. Exactly. And, it doesn't matter what you think. They just go by your record.
My parents were
Brain dead zombie.
because they were morons.
My mom was for a little while, just for a little while, back when Bush was in office. And you can't blame her, really. I mean, because Bush was pretty bad, right? Let's see. He believed that schooling should be teaching children education, all the education you're supposed to get. If you're going to pay taxes, you should go ahead and, educate those kids. And schoolwork gets done at school, not at home.
I agree with you there.
Yeah.
I just
No, that was my dad.
Yeah. I responded to
Camel toe.
Paris just recently,
Oh,
and
no.
she's like, we're doing this program to help kids with homework and stuff like that. And I'm like, hold on. All right. So, yeah, that's how we're editing the last show. And we'll get that back up to you guys. I'm going to try to find a smoother way. And, I know there's a lot of edits there, so I might edit it a little bit differently. But we're definitely going to find a place for you guys to get the full Beyond the Veil shows. BeyondTheVeilRadio.com. We haven't updated in a while. I think we're going to use BTVTribe.com, but we're definitely going to be putting out a mailing list first and foremost. So we're asking everybody to sign up for the mailing list. I wish I would have had all that ready for tonight, but I was working on other projects. But we're not going anywhere. But we did receive inappropriate content for essentially reporting exactly what hearings and mainstream media has been reporting on and just commenting on it. I mean, there was nothing strange, that's nothing different. And I noticed some of the mainstream media outlets like NDZ, I think it is, they're putting all their videos on unlisted and just sending them out to their subscribers. So it's getting pretty bad. We're going to have to find a new platform, no doubt about it. But one of the terms and conditions are that you can't drive people from your YouTube channel over to other places too. So that's why we're asking everybody to join our mailing list. We'll put out another video when we get the mailing list together. I wanted to have it done before this show, but we'll make sure to keep in touch with everybody. We're not going anywhere, and we're going to still continue doing what we do. But realistically, if it moves down the negative timeline and the Sith gets in office, well, then what's going to happen is everything's going to go back to being scripted, so there'd be no reason to talk about anything that's going on anymore at the time. The only reason why we've been talking about everything right now is because the Jedi has been in control, and the Jedi has had power, and the Jedi has fought a really, really, really good fight, and the Jedi still has a few more Jedi moves up their sleeve. So theoretically, what we're really looking at is January 6th, the January 6th date. And there's also an executive Jedi power that can be done, that was done back in 2018. And if this Jedi power is accessed and enacted, then what happens is that it calls into question any Sith interference or interference from any other galaxy out there who's interfering in what's going on right now. And so by doing that, if the Jedi enact this power from within them, that they manifested in 2018, then it can definitely flip over to the Jedi timeline, and the Sith will fall. So we'll see what happens. And then on January 6th as well, the Congress gets together, and the head of the Congress, or the head of the Senate, I should say, not Emperor Palpatine, Emperor Pensatine, has the ability to veto any lightsabers that he feels that are not working properly, or that were created with some kind of malfunction or some kind of irregularity.
Yeah, malfunctioning
lightsabers. And if there were a vast majority in any part of the galaxy, in any part of the empire, then he has the ability to call for a vote between all of the Congress, and each planetary system, which there are 50 of within this galaxy, has one vote per planet. So what would happen at that point is, as long as none of the Jedi defect over to the dark side, as long as none of them defect over to the Sith side, then what would happen is it would be a win for the Jedi, because I think it's like there's how many of them? There's 50. And so it would be like, I think there's like 23 and 26 or 23 and 27 or 24. It's a very small number. All they need is a few Jedi to defect over to the Sith side in order to take this power away from the Jedi.
I think they know this, and that's why threats are going on.
And they're threatening some of the Jedi, and they're tempting some of the Jedi with the dark side, and they're like, come to the dark side, come to the dark side. But in actual fact, I don't think that they're going to. I think the Jedi know that the Jedi need to be in control. I think the Jedi know that if the Jedi Master, the one that carries the orange lightsaber, if the Jedi Master with the orange lightsaber is at the helm of everything, then the galaxy is going to find peace and prosperity, and so on and so forth. But if the
continue
Sith
to find peace
and continue to find
yeah.
peace and prosperity, but if the Sith takes over, then what's going to happen is there's going to be a planetary blockade of all the planets. The citizens of those planetary systems are going to fall into a tyrannical rule, and they'll have to wear respirators and be injected with the darkness.
Because the Sith have been out of power for the last several years, and so when Siths are denied that power for such a long time, they become very violent when they do, if and when they do get that power back. So, yeah, it's a dangerous situation for the Jedi.
It is a dangerous situation for the Jedi, but we as Jedi Masters ourselves have the ability to flip everything into the positive timeline. So it's time to grab your lightsabers and do what we need to do.
Exactamundo.
So there is this planet in the Star Wars galaxy called Michigania. And in Michigania, one of the judges in Michigania actually, what they did is they were able to get some of these lightsabers, and they were able to go through them all and audit them, and they found out that the machines that were manufacturing the lightsabers actually had flipped some of the lightsabers from the light to the dark, from the Jedi to the Sith.
Exactly.
And now there's a court order investigation over that, over the lightsaber irregularities. So, we're definitely seeing that. This is actually the first court order that is showing that the Sith really have been up to no good in this situation, and that they really are trying to take over the galaxy. And it's other galaxies as well. It's the galaxy of Chinaia. Yeah. And, the whole emperor of Chinaia that's behind all of this. There was a big disclosure of a list of all galaxies out there who work for Chinonia and the planet Chinonia. And there's 2 million people on that list. 2 million people, 2 million Siths in disguise. And they're in disguise of corporations. They're in disguise of planetary system, places of rule over planetary systems and things like that. And some of them are embedded within our own planet themselves too. So once that list goes public, we're going to see who exactly is bought and paid for by Chinonia,
the dark side,
and the planetary system, and who's working for the dark side and who's working for the Siths.
Exactly.
And this is all just fan fiction, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Just, we're big Star Wars fan fiction people here.
Huge Star Wars fans, and we like to make fiction about it.
Yeah.
Because we like to continue
so don't
these
lose
stories.
Hope. There was this big lawsuit with Tatooine. Tatooine and 17 other planets got together and sued. That lawsuit didn't go through the Jedi Supreme Court, or the Jedi Court of the Supreme, and that seemed like a big loss. But in actual fact, it seems to be setting a precedent right now that the Jedi Court of the Supreme doesn't have authority over the lightsaber process and the lightsaber manufacturing process. So if it does go on January 6th to the Congress and the head of the Congress in that situation, who would be the Vice Jedi, and he disqualifies all of the malfunctioning lightsabers and refuses to do all of that, then what the Sith is going to do is they're going to run back to the Supreme Court of the Jedi, and they're going to try to take it to them. But there's already been a precedent set that the Supreme Court of the Jedi does not hear lightsaber issues.
Right.
So therefore,
it's not their. Yeah.
Therefore, this could have been a plan, and it could have been something that was stacked on top of each other, and like a looky-loo, like, here, let's set a precedent over here with Tatooine. But on the other hand, when the Sith come back in here and try to use those same means, it's actually taking their power away, so they're not going to be able to do that.
Exactly.
So this may flip into the positive timeline, no doubt about it.
Right, exactly. And it all has to do, and I think what really helps and what we can do, as the fictional writers of this story, we are the writers of this story. So our thoughts and our intentions and our words and the things that we think really do affect this whole thing. That's what I meant by this is the weighing of the heart ceremony. We have to not only realize what we're inside of and who we are outside of here, we also have to realize how powerful our minds really are and our intentions, how magic really works. Because magic isn't abracadabra saying the right words, it's feeling the right words.
Well,
it's
okay,
so the right
somebody said sounds
way.
like jurisdiction, so I wanted to talk about this Tatooine case here for just a moment. Because when it was dismissed, I was a little bit disappointed, and they dismissed it based on standing. So there's several different elements in any court system, whether it's the Jedi court or any other court like that. You have jurisdiction, you have standing, and then you have the merits of the case itself. You also have causation, and in this particular case, Tatooine, what they said is that the effects that Tatooine had on Hoth, who they were suing, didn't have a direct correlation, even though Hoth said, wait a minute, all these faulty lightsabers here, they're also affecting us indirectly because the lightsaber manufacturer that's going to be at the head of all this is our representation as well. And we're going to be getting our lightsabers from them too. And so that's the grounds that we're standing on. But they said no, that's a little bit too indirect there. And they referenced another case. It was Cloud City versus another planetary system, and they were arguing over a river that was running through it. And the two planetary systems had a direct causation between the two because they were arguing over a river. So it was a dispute between one planet and another planet. So then they were able to go to the Supreme Court of the Jedi, and they were able to file that. They were able to resolve that dispute like that. And this is what the Supreme Court of the Jedi came back and said. And they said, look, if it was a direct thing, if it was Hoth interfering with Tatooine directly, that's a case. But this, Tatooine doesn't have any right to dictate to Hoth how they're going to run their Jedi or their lightsaber manufacturing process. So, it is what it is as far as that goes. But again, if you think about it from a 10D kind of level, it could again be to create that precedent that the Jedi Supreme Court doesn't rule over cases involving lightsaber issues or lightsaber irregularities or malfunctions, or
exactly.
Lightsaber anything like that to do with lightsabers, period, at all. Like they don't want anything to do with that. I mean, realistically, the only people who should have a say as to who creates the lightsabers, who wields the orange lightsaber, are the people of all the planetary systems. And the people have spoken, and they want the orange lightsaber, no doubt about it. Everything
they want the orange lightsaber bearer.
Yeah.
Yep.
They want the bearer of the orange lightsaber.
Yep. They've been very clear about this. And this is why attempts are even made to silence the people of Tatooine and all of these other star systems that have determined this, that this is what they want. They silent, the Sith and the dark side in general, because some of them aren't Siths themselves, but they go along with the dark side agenda because they're afraid of being treated badly by the Sith, and they think that they're going to be treated well if they go along with the dark side agenda, but they're not.
No, the dark side consumes you.
Yes, it does. Every time.
It consumes you. If you give in to the dark side, it's going to turn on you sooner than later. We've seen the dark side turning on many of its quote unquote allies in the past. There was the order of the Black Siths Mather, and now that the Siths are think they're going to get in power, they've cut all contact with the Black Siths Matter organization 1,000%. And it just goes to show, like, Black Siths Matter are furious about this because they're like, hey, we stood up against the bearer of the orange lightsaber, and we helped you get in power. We helped change things to get into the hands of the Siths, and now you're turning your back on us, and they will not make any contact or anything like that whatsoever. I mean, even in entertainment, they have a game that they play over there, and it's a game where they take a ball and they shoot it into this hole. Futuristic game in this Star Wars thing, and it's players, they bounce the ball up and down in a futuristic manner, and they shoot it up there, and they made this huge industry out of it. the galactic man, I'm this is a lot more difficult than I expected it to be.
This is getting elaborate.
The national futuristic I can't think of a term for it, but no, there's a whole sports industry that decided that they're going to put black Sith's matter all over their courts and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the people of the universe, all the galaxies, said no, we're not having any of this, and their viewership went down to like a fourth of what it was before, and they lost all support because they realized that Black Sith matter wasn't really about the Black Siths, but rather it was about bringing in power for the Siths themselves, and they were just being used and so on and so forth
As pawns, right?
Yeah.
And then some of them didn't even know that they were on the Sith side by being part of Black Sith matter.
No, but they're realizing it more.
They're realizing it more and more
of
now.
the Black Sith matter are turning over to the Jedi side,
right?
And he who wields the orange lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep, exactly.
This is fucking ridiculous.
This is absurd. This is utterly absurd. I don't. Orwell would be.
Well, you know what? It makes you think through history, though. And there were many times like this before. And you read a lot of allegories, Animal Farm, for example.
Yep.
Because things couldn't be spoken at certain times.
Exactly.
And we're finding ourselves in the exact same time when things cannot be spoken, and they must be spoken in allegory and story and fictional works.
And that's
so that's what we're going to be doing here at Beyond the Veil. Anytime we talk about what's going on in the tale that we're writing here, you know, our Star Wars fan fiction, we're going to have to frame it and tell the story as it unfolds.
Exactly.
And it's very sad. It's very sad.
Yeah, it really is.
Those who seek the truth will find it, and those who won't.
Right. It's not. And
it's pretty interesting that we were targeted, though, because there's others who have done similar videos who have not, who are still online.
Right.
And you raised a really good point. You said those other people, the ones that they put on the forefront, even though they're talking about some of the stuff that we've been banned for talking about, you said it gets people here.
Right.
But it doesn't get people here.
Right. And at the end of the day, that's what matters.
And we get people here.
And here. You know, we get people on both levels.
Yeah.
And when you get people on both levels, that's dangerous to the Siths. That is incredibly dangerous to them. Because when you're able to reach people on both levels, then it sticks with them. It's not something that can just be shut off at the end of the day and not thought about anymore. It stays with you, and it grows like a fire inside of your heart. And when that fire gets to a certain point, people start behaving differently. They start standing up for themselves. They start not accepting certain things in their lives, or certain things happening to people around them. And they start asserting themselves and standing up for their own rights.
Somebody said kitty in the room. Yep, they're both right there.
Uh-huh, they're both right there. They love being with us. That's another thing, you know, cats, our cats are not like other people's cats. From what we understand, from what people have told us, our cats are totally different. And I think it's because we literally treat them like they're our babies and they're our family members. And a lot of you guys out there can understand this, because when you have a pet that you have for your enjoyment and your benefit and your, you know, edification, then it's basically a work animal. You know, it's like a plow horse for your heart, you know, and that dog or cat or pet is never going to trust you and love you as like a parent or, you know, somebody that they truly love. They're going to do what you tell them to, but at the end of the day, they don't want to be around you. They, you know, will hide from you, and Ours are completely the opposite. Ours act like they're our babies. You know.
The Trade Federation.
There we go. The Trade Federation.
Chinonia. That's
Chinonia.
also the Trade Federation. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I'm not too familiar, but I have a feeling that I'm going to be watching all those movies again. Cause
Yeah.
I'm going to have to up my game, and I'm going off the
In the
top of my
code
head.
territory.
You know, we haven't seen those movies in a while, and
Yeah, we should watch
it's
them.
interesting because there was a Mandela effect with C-3PO at the very opening scene of A New Hope, where he's walking through, and he has a silver leg. And when The Force Awakens came out, Cherie hadn't seen any of the films at all, so obviously we had to sit down and watch at least the 3. I don't know if we watched all 6 of them. The
remember.
prequels I can't stand. I can't stand any of them. They're all crap.
Yeah, they're all
Even
crap.
Attack of the Clones is crap.
It was bad.
But we watched them all, and then we went and watched The Force Awakens. And in The Force Awakens, C-3PO has a red arm, which I thought was kind of weird, and it was never explained. And I didn't even bother watching the last one. I couldn't finish watching the second one. The second one that was just released, I think it was The Last Jedi. I couldn't even finish watching that. And then I tried, I bought it, and I never watched it. The final one that was just out, I don't remember I can't remember what it was called.
The Force Awakens.
No, it was the last one, the Rise of the
Jedi.
Rise of Skywalker.
Oh,
something
Rise of
like that.
Skywalker. Yeah, or something.
So, I couldn't even bother watching those. I need to watch them, though. But my point is, though, that we had just watched those movies. Like, we had literally just watched those movies. And then all of a sudden this Mandela effect comes out, and we're like, hey, wait a minute. And we go back and we watch the exact same movie, and he has a silver leg.
Mm-hmm.
We never, ever, ever
No.
saw a silver leg. And we had just watched this like 2 weeks before the Mandela effect thing came out. And then you go back to toys from back then, and he has a silver leg. And it's like, no. I had toys when I was a kid. I never once had a toy of C3PO.
Didn't you have a sheet set
with a silver leg? I had a sheet set as well
on your bed, and you saw it every single night?
every single day.
Yeah.
And he was all gold. Now, to be fair, though, in Empire Strikes Back, what happened is he was destroyed and then put back together, and then he did turn gold when he was put back together, but I remember looking at those sheets every single day. Well, not every day, because my mom would change the sheets regularly. But I looked at those sheets, and he always had 2 gold legs. There was never a silver leg, never.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, pretty crazy. But I haven't heard of any new Mandela effects lately. Have you?
I haven't either, and I think it's because we've been cutting. We've been in a singular timeline that's either going in a positive or a negative direction. And if something gets to the point where something horrible is inevitable in this timeline, we literally just jump to another timeline where that isn't happening.
Well, it's interesting because Wafer Thin said, always had a silver leg on my timeline. That's interesting. See, here's the thing, though. Like, where's the lore behind that, though? That's the thing. Like, Star Wars has all this lore to it, all this fan fiction. It's got all these, books and all these backstories and everything like that. And you probably know Star Wars better than I do. So correct me on this, please, if I'm wrong. But there's no mention of a silver leg anywhere
or how he got it. Right.
In any of the Star Wars universe, anything, comic books, nothing like that at all, period. So, what do you make of that? Like, Star Wars makes up backstories for literally everything. I mean, if somebody has their shoe untied, there's a backstory as
there's a reason why.
As to why that is.
Exactly.
But
you would
nothing,
think there'd be something.
No mentions on forums.
Yeah.
Nobody has mentioned the silver leg at all. What was interesting is that the actor who came out, the actor who played C-3PO, he said, yeah, he had a silver leg. He always had a silver leg. However, the photographer posted on Twitter, and he said, no, the photographer who took all the original promo shots for A New Hope, he goes, no, he never had a silver leg. I would have adjusted my light accordingly for the silver leg. The argument against the silver leg is that the reflection from the gold was reflecting onto the silver, so you never really saw it, especially in the desert scene where they're walking around. But at the very opening scene of A New Hope, it's crystal clear, silver as can be. Now, again, people were looking at old footage, so, those old versions of Star Wars, even in theaters, were horrible versions compared to what there is now. But it's interesting nonetheless.
It is interesting because it also brings into the question of, the solipsism argument, and also the fact that when, sometimes I tell Chris, you need to tell me, when I'm doing stuff that, say makes me look unattractive, if I roll my eyes a certain way, or if I, do something on camera that doesn't look good, you need to tell me, because I'm inside of this meat suit and I can't see what I look like or what I sound like. I can't see myself the way other people see me. And so I need some input about that. I think it might be the same with some of these Mandela effects. Mandela effects that concern things. Oh, I forgot to
uncover your camera. I've got it on the screen here. People are saying silver leg, like in where? Like in prequels? No. This is the opening
in the
scene,
original. Yeah,
the opening scene of A New Hope. There it is, right there. A silver leg.
Like I was saying, I think these Mandela effects, if you're too close to the Mandela effect, like actually wearing that suit, then it's different than somebody that is far enough away from the Mandela effect to be able to tell there's a difference there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
If you're too close to it, then yeah, it makes sense that you wouldn't see the Mandela effect happening, and it would have always been like that to you. Because you're part of it.
Here's what I've noticed with the Mandela effect too, is that if I think of something for long enough, then what happens is the memory will start to change in my mind.
Fade.
And it'll fade. Yeah. But I knew instinctively when the Mandela effect came out, I need to hold on to the real memories. I don't know why. I need to hold on to the real memories. It's important to do so.
I think it is important to do so. In order to, it's kind of like a programming tool, where if you can remember these different timelines, then you have a little bit more control over your own reality.
I think we did a video about Mandela effect.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
I'm sure we won't be able to find it.
Yeah, I know. And that's another way that we've been shadow banned, is that you can't find our work very easily. Oh, there we go. Well, it's probably because you're logged in as yourself.
The Mandela effect is an internet phenomenon where
we tried doing these kind of videos. The problem is it takes so fucking long.
Yeah, it does. It really
people
does.
remember slight differences in the timeline. Is this simply due to bad memory, or could it be evidence of a parallel universe?
In this video, we will break down our pick for the top 5 Mandela effects that are more than just coincidence when you use your third eye to see beyond the veil. Number 5, Forrest Gump. Many people remember the line, "Life is like a box of chocolates." However, in this timeline, the wording is a bit different.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Thousands of people seem to remember the phrase, "Life is like a box of chocolates," instead of "was." In fact, countless YouTube channels hosting this clip title their videos with the word "is." This is not to mention the hundreds of memes found on Google Images bearing the same phrase. But what does Tom Hanks have to say about it?
Mom always said life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Mom always said life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Hey, you want to see something interesting? Here's what the caption says.
Life is like a box of chocolates.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's no doubt. It sounds like he could have said "was."
Yeah, but even
okay. So this is on SNL when he's reenacting.
He's reenacting it. Yeah.
And that's how he remembers it.
He remembers that his life is like a box of chocolates.
Here, I guess we can keep the...
Never know what you're gonna get.
So was your life like a box of chocolates? Or is your life like a box of chocolates?
Aw.
Is a box of chocolates, Forrest?
I say it depends on what the meaning of was is, jerk.
Number 4, Luke, I am your father.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
In the iconic film series Star Wars, the climactic point for every viewer was the revelation that Luke Skywalker was the son of Darth Vader. However, the line no longer exists within the film, having been replaced with,
No, I am your father.
Once again, we're faced with the idea that hundreds of thousands of people have been misquoting what is arguably the most iconic line in cinema history. However, let's see how James Earl Jones himself remembers it.
When I first saw the dialogue that said, Luke, I am your father, I said to myself, he's lying. I wonder how they're going to play that liar. Luke, I am your father.
But perhaps this was just a simple slip of the tongue. Or was it?
Luke, I am your father.
So what do you think? Is this merely faulty memory?
It is useless to resist.
Or is this proof of a parallel timeline?
Not true. That's impossible.
Search your feelings, you know it to be true.
And I haven't seen this in forever.
Number 3, New Zealand, a beautiful country in the southern hemisphere located in the southwestern Pacific Ocean, at least in this timeline. However, hundreds of thousands of people remember this small country as being located somewhere else. While some people remember New Zealand as the same relative size, located northeast of Australia, a large amount of people remember it being a distinct landmass directly to the west. In a random scene from the 1993 film Dazed and Confused, a remnant of this alternate geography can be seen. It is worth mentioning that a similar landmass might also be seen in an older episode of the AMC series Mad Men. However, debunkers have quickly pointed out that this may be a topography legend instead.
Fucking high.
What's interesting about both globes is that New Zealand doesn't seem to exist in its current location. So what do you think? Is this evidence of a major geographical change?
Are you saying the map is wrong?
Oh dear, yes.
Or are hundreds of thousands of people simply dazed and confused?
I am definitely not high.
Number 2, Snow White. Everyone remembers the classic phrase, "Mirror, mirror on the wall," spoken by the evil queen. And many remember the wording written in text during the opening scene. The only problem is, this phrase doesn't actually exist. At least not in this timeline. Instead, the phrase goes,
Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?
Now this is where things get interesting. According to the English translation of the original fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm, the correct phrase is,
Magic mirror in my hand, who is the fairest of the land?
But this doesn't quite coincide with the original German phrase, which is
Spiegeln, Spiegeln, en der Wand.
That literally translates to mirror, mirror on the wall. So the question is, are people simply remembering the old German translation? Or has Snow White been changed as part of the Mandela effect?
Magic mirror on the wall, who now is the fairest one of all?
Before we get to number 1, here's a few honorable mentions.
Which sounds right to you? Interview with the vampire or Interview with a Vampire?
It's another blockbuster year for Hollywood, the motion picture Interview with a Vampire.
In the film Star Wars, A New Hope, did you ever notice C-3PO has a silver leg?
Did you hear that? They shut down the main reactor. We'll be destroyed for sure. This is madness.
How do you remember the quote from Field of Dreams?
If you build it, you will come.
And how about the quote from Jaws, we're gonna need a bigger boat?
You're gonna folks.
And the list goes on and on, from Bible passages to company logos. Some are merely due to bad memory, but others may very well be the Mandela effect.
Number 1, the Berenstain Bears. Many of us learn to read by reading the adventures of this family of bears. This is why so many people ran for their basements and attics when they realized the name was spelled with an A instead of an E. While this may seem trivial in and of itself, the most interesting part of this Mandela effect is the mountains of evidence showing Berenstein, not Berenstain. Taking a trip through the Wayback Machine for a website called 80scartoons.net, several entries can be found containing the name Berenstein in the episode list. Then suddenly, on August 5th, 2001, the names appear as Berenstain. That is, of course, except for the URL itself, which remains Berenstein to this day. But who better to defer to than Jonathan Reichman, the trademark attorney behind Spider-Man, Batman, Barbie, Babar the Elephant, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the Berenstein Bears.
So what do you think of the Mandela effect? Has half the world been struck by foggy memory in the last few years? Or is it compelling evidence that our timeline has been changed and that our reality is not as static as we might think?
Let us know what you think in the comments below. What's your favorite Mandela effect? And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more amazing insights from Beyond the Veil.
God, we were so young back then.
Yeah, I know, right? I would really like, I really would like to do, we were talking about, other things that we can do besides just Beyond the Veil that, would not just, it's not about creating content about it as much as like, what are we into that we could enjoy doing? And one of them was, well, I would enjoy it, is, basically decoding movies and Netflix shows and shows that are on Amazon Prime and things like that. And like Stranger Things, I think we did a show about, and that one was a lot of fun.
Well, you know what's interesting is
Dark is another one.
People are talking about Tom Hanks in the chat, and Tom Hanks supposedly turned on the Large Hadron Collider.
Really?
Yeah. And then there was a lot of Mandela effects around Tom Hanks. People remember the movie Big Changing. There was, of course, the Forrest Gump ones. Apollo 13 was the biggest one. And I wish I would have gotten video of this. I should have. Because in the video, he says, Houston, we've had a problem. And then on the recording of NASA, it says, Houston, we have a problem. And then it changed. And there was a video where you can see the comments going, because in the movie now it says, Houston, we have a problem. But on the NASA recordings, it says, Houston, we've had a problem, or vice versa. I don't remember which way they changed. But in the comments, you can see people freaking out going, wait a minute. It was Houston, we've had a problem. Houston, we've had a problem. And then in the video, it says, Houston, we've had a problem. I mean, we have a problem. So you can see in the comments, like, people are freaking out on the same video, and then other people are saying, what are you talking about? It says, Houston, we have a problem right there. So it's weird. You could see the shifting taking place and people in the comments. So, yeah, I don't know what you make of that.
Well, what's interesting is you never watched the end of Man in the High Castle, did you?
No, Ed McMahon never worked for Publishing Clearinghouse.
Yeah, that's weird.
Remember Ed McMahon used to show up at people's doors?
Oh, who are you, Ed McMahon?
Yeah.
It's Ed McMahon at the door? That used to be a running joke,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I think I remember there was an episode of The Golden Girls.
Where they were
referenced
going
that,
on about,
and they said, "Oh, well, maybe Ed McMahon will show up to the door."
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You know, that's like saying Pat Sajak never hosted Wheel of Fortune. You know, I mean that's how big of a deal that is. You know, the end of The Man in the High Castle has a machine that's being built that takes people to other timelines, other realities.
Oh.
And the people that are involved in creating this machine are also taken to these different timelines / different realities. And I'm wondering if maybe the proximity to the Large Hadron Collider is why there's so many Mandela effects concerning Tom Hanks, because the closer you are in proximity to these activation points determines how many realities you're involved in.
Yeah.
And he was just involved in so many that there's all these Mandela effects about him now. Weird stuff. There's also some ankle bracelet stuff and weirdness regarding COVID.
You know, the Sith that is taking over right now, or trying to take over, was seen in with a boot.
With a boot on his
supposedly
foot
broke
that he
his
was
leg.
putting all of his weight on.
He broke his leg by petting his dog. And then the one that yields the orange lightsaber, he gets the most infectious disease in the galaxy and
beats it in 3 days.
So
that's some Jedi Knight shit.
The
right
previous
there.
Sith who went up against the Sith with the orange lightsaber back in 2016, they were also seen with a boot right around this time too.
Right, exactly.
There was another one, Bologna of the Bar Galaxy. He was recently seen, there was a photo circulating around of him supposedly in handcuffs. So he may have actually been arrested.
Right.
So there might be some things going down. Now, again, you got to be careful about what you read on the internet.
Yes.
You know, you got to be careful because a lot of it is taken out of context. And, we talked about it and, all that. We talked about it on the show with Lucky, the whole Nestle thing. They have that quote, water should not be a human right. Then what was really going on is they were trying to solve India's water crisis and they declared it a human right. And what he was suggesting is that people pay a water bill because corporations and farmers were using up all the water, and so poor people couldn't have water. And so they were suggesting that, water shouldn't be a human right because they declared it a human right, even though it's not a human right anywhere else in the world. We pay a water bill. Everybody else pays a water bill.
Everybody pays their water bill.
But they take it out of context and they demonize somebody like that. And I'm not saying that Nestle has the best water or anything like that. I'm just looking for truth. I just want to know what the truth is.
But it's
it's things like that.
Catchphrase is Nestle is the very best, though.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I'm just
I look for truth like that. In that video that was banned, we also talked about that. I mean, I think I try to come from a very non-biased perspective, and I try to see all sides of the coin here. But when the lightsabers are so irregular and they're malfunctioning so much, you've got to say this is by design. You've got to say the people manufacturing these lightsabers
are doing it,
and counting these lightsabers are doing it on purpose.
Are doing it wrong on purpose.
One after another, after another, after another. Broken lightsaber, broken lightsaber, broken lightsaber, broken lightsaber. Fraudulent lightsaber, replica lightsaber. Somebody that doesn't have a lightsaber license, wielding a lightsaber. Casting a lightsaber, so on and so forth. So
getting rid of the people that are supposed to be watching the lightsabers being made.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
In this in this time that we're in right now, in this time, there were 153 million lightsabers, registered lightsabers. 153 million registered lightsabers. Supposedly, the orange lightsaber, the Jedi, they got 75 million of those lightsabers, and the Sith got 81 million. Well, that adds up to 156 million. Where'd the extra 3 million come from?
Right.
That in and of itself is enough to raise
to
some
warrant questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, the fact that, people can't ask questions is a big problem.
Yeah.
If,
well, that's
it's supposedly a free
because,
galaxy.
Here's the thing. If there's somebody lying about me, I want all the information out there. I want the truth out there. I'm not going to try to cover this up and that up and this up and that.
I'm not going to try to suppress it,
because I would be the one that would say yes, absolutely, absolutely. I'm trying to think. Okay, do you think I'm not wearing boots? Okay, well, come and check if I'm wearing boots. Come, I welcome you to check if I'm wearing boots, because I'm wearing boots.
Book.
I'm wearing Doc Martens steel-toed boots. Okay, they're right here. I want you to do an investigation on this because I want to prove how wrong you are about this. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be trying to cover my feet. So I'd only be trying to cover my feet if I wasn't really wearing boots.
That's a really good point. It gets turned around on the Jedi all the time, where you're basically, guilty until proven innocent. And, we're doing an investigation, so you need to cooperate with this investigation. Okay, well,
great. I'll be more than happy to. Here,
we cooperate with their investigations, so the Siths should be just as responsible for cooperating with any investigations of them too.
Right.
Just saying.
But when the truth comes out,
mm-hmm.
and you're accusing somebody of wearing boots,
mm-hmm.
maybe they're really not wearing boots.
Exactly.
That's why they're covering their feet.
Right, exactly. Analogies galore.
That's what we got to do.
Yep. You gotta do what you got to do.
Anyways, we're going to move it to the positive timeline. Anyway it goes. One thing that we said on the last show that didn't get out there because of that incident
Mm-hmm.
Was the idea of deintegrating from the Matrix. And what if it wasn't meant to go down a positive timeline? And we have some reasoning as to why that might be the case. We're not going to manifest a non-positive timeline, but there might be a reason why a positive timeline is not something that's supposed to manifest. I feel that we here at Beyond the Veil, we completed our mission. Our BTV tribe, you guys did awesome. You guys and gals did freaking awesome. We got everything done that needed to be done. We did.
Yep.
But maybe there's a reason for things having to get tighter and tighter and tighter and denser and denser and denser. It's not something I really wanted to entertain just yet, but we can talk about it briefly. I think we should take a quick break, though.
Yeah, I think I need to stretch my legs a little bit.
Yeah, and then after that, I want to tell you about what if we don't go down a positive timeline, what does that mean, and why? So let's take a quick break, really quick, and we'll be right back, and then I guess we'll wrap it up after that.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure I understand you correctly. So you said you're alleging that you heard or that you witnessed ballots being put in the machine, run through, counted, and then put through it again?
That poll book is off by over 100,000. That poll book, what did you guys do? Take it and do something crazy to it? Why don't you look at the registered voters? 0, 0, there's 0. Why don't you look at the registered voters? 0, 0. They were just rescanning, counting votes 9 to 10 times. They were running these ballots through countless times. Wait, what about the turnout rate? 120%. There was illegal activity going on there.
What you said today is the truth.
I wrote a written affidavit.
What you said today is the truth.
Yes, it is 100% true. I know what I saw, and I signed something saying that if I'm wrong, I can go to prison. Did you? That poll book is off by over 100,000. That poll book, what did you guys do? Take it and do something crazy to it? Why don't you look at the registered voters? 0, 0, there's 0. Why don't you look at the registered voters? 0, 0, there's 0. They just found my resume. They called me and said, do you want to work the election? These Democrats took every avenue possible to commit fraud in this election.
Can you put a number to it?
Countless times, numerous times, 9 to 10 times, thousands of times, at least 30,000, over 100,000. What I saw was over 20 counts of fraud taking place in front of my face. And this isn't counting, the ballots that are found in rivers, the ballots found under rocks, the ballots, that poll book is off by over 100,000. That poll book? What do you guys do? Take it and do something crazy to it? Why don't you look at the registered voters? 0, 0, there's 0. Why don't you look at the registered voters? 0, 0, there's 0.
What the fuck,
Thank you. This may be the most important speech I've ever made.
Well, it's about time.
It was a massive dump, and to this day everyone's trying to figure out where did it come from. Massive dump, wow, in the Senate, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Massive dump, and to this day everyone's trying to figure out where did it come from. Massive dump, wow, but I went from leading by a lot to losing by a little. We used to have what was called Election Day. Now we have election days, weeks and months. Lots of bad things happened. What can I say? Wow, it was a massive dump. Our country cannot live with this election. Right now, we're worried about the present and what went on with an election that we won without question. In Pennsylvania, large amounts of dump. All over the country, dump. Nevada and California said dump. Right here in Washington. It was a massive dump. And to this day, everyone's trying to figure out where did it come from. Massive dump, wow, in the Senate. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Massive dump. And to this day, everyone's trying to figure out where did it come from. Massive dump, wow. But I went from leading by a lot to losing by a little. So many got ballots, they didn't even know what they were for. And again, so many received more than one ballot. In some cases, more than 2 ballots. What? If you were a Democrat, we're gonna fix up your ballot, make sure it's perfect. If you were a Republican, don't even talk about it. Can you believe this? The hardest thing I have to do is dump. When they're irregular, dump. Let's go on to the next dump. It's because they know they are hiding. It's a massive dump. And to this day, everyone's trying to figure out where did it come from. Massive dump, wow, in the Senate. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Massive dump. And to this day, everyone's trying to figure out where did it come from. Massive dump, wow. But I went from leading by a lot to losing by a little.
What the fuck,
Oh, he did a thing on DMX, man. DMX, I used to love that guy. I used to love his music. But he was arrested for animal cruelty and abuse for fighting pit bulls. And they found pit bulls burnt and all kinds of stuff like that. Like, they treat these dogs horrible. Like, if they lose a fight, they'll set them on fire. They'll do stuff like that.
So mad.
I'm not going to get too much into detail, but let me just say I have zero respect for that guy. And that guy needs to be tortured. Like really, really, really bad,
brutally
and
tortured.
The fact that he's back in the public eye is pissing me off about it, because you don't treat animals like that.
Right.
Animals and children are the two things. They can't fight back. You know.
Mm-hmm.
We had a situation where I'm not even going to get into it. I'm not, but somebody was treating their dog like shit, and it's just it's infuriating. It is infuriating. You don't treat animals like that. But that's why we have such sweet cats, because we treat them
like
like family. They're our babies.
They
are our babies, and they're sweet. Like, Lucky came over and she slept over here last night, and Sekhmet went and slept on top of Lucky all night. Like, you know, I mean, total stranger.
Yeah.
But I mean, stranger to her. But, you know, and she's like, oh my God, you know, we did a live stream yesterday. We were running around Las Vegas, and she's like, really, you know, their cats are as sweet as they look on camera. She's like, they're the sweetest cats in the world. And it's like, it's very simple. Number one, never, ever, ever yell at them.
Yep.
They don't understand when you yell at them. Number two, never, ever, ever smack them. Even if it's a light smack, never, never, never smack them. The way you train a cat is, if they're doing something that you don't want them to do, you pick them up and you put them somewhere else. If they're scratching on the couch, you pick them up
and
while they're scratching,
and
you put them on the scratching post.
Uh-huh.
If
Gently.
It's simple, gently, with love. You just pick them up And what I do, like what I did, they as soon as we got the new couch, they wanted to scratch it. And every time they would go scratch it, I would pick them up and I would take them over to their scratching post and I would push on their claws a little bit and stick them to the scratching post. And then they would continue scratching on the scratching post.
Exactly.
And every once in a while, they try to sneak in a little scratch on the couch.
I think it's more forgetting, and then once,
I hear
because once she sees me seeing her do it, she stops. And
it's always Bastet.
It's always
Sekhmet
Bastet.
doesn't do it. So when I'm laying on the couch, she thinks I can't see her. So she'll go scratch on the. I'll go Bastet, and then she'll go to her scratching post and
scratch that instead.
But you've also got to provide like a scratching post for them too.
Yeah,
and we have these
enough of them.
We have like big scratching posts like this. I mean, they were only like $30-$40, but we bought 3 or 4 of them. We've got them scattered around the house, so they have scratching posts. You can see them. They're both here, sleeping next to us because they love us so much. They want to be around us. M. Hawking sent us this one here. And she sent a donation and we bought that one. And they have another one downstairs. So they have their own place. They have their own space to do what they do. They get on the counters. That's just something you just have to accept.
Yeah, you just have to accept it.
We have cabinets, so we put some cushions up on the cabinets. And we're like, okay, in the kitchen. So they'll hop up on the counter, hop up on the refrigerator, hop up on the cabinets, walk over there and go lay on their cushions. Because we're like, what are we going to do? Yell at them for doing what cats do?
Right.
I mean, it's
or what cats love to do.
But we turned it into a positive thing because now anytime we make food, anytime we do anything like that, we clean the surface off, which is something we should always be doing.
Right.
But now
we do it particularly now.
We're doing particularly because we know there's probably cat blood on that surface.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you just take the negative and you flip it into something positive. And they've seen us yell at each other. And at first they were freaked out. Now they're just like, oh yeah, mommy and daddy are yelling at each other again.
They're just doing what humans do.
Sometimes they'll come in, like when we're arguing, sometimes they'll come in and try to break up the argument.
Yeah, it's so cute.
Because they know, even if we're yelling, we've had yelling matches before.
Yeah,
where it's
right in front of them.
Fuck you!
Yeah, exactly.
And they're just totally chill through all that because they know that no matter how upset we are,
they're always going to be safe.
They're safe.
Yeah. And everyone's always going to be safe, you know, and that's all they really care about at the end of the day.
They woke up lucky this morning because I usually fall asleep on the couch. A lot of times I fall asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
And they'll come and wake me up first thing in the morning and they want the door open. So Sekhmet went to Lucky this morning because she was sleeping on the couch and Lucky was like, what do you want? Are you hungry? Do you want to play? And she's like, I couldn't figure out what they wanted. And I was like, oh, they wanted the door open.
You've been sleeping in a lot lately. So they've been coming to me. And then this morning, they just basically go to whichever human is closest to the door in proximity, I think. Because they usually they've been coming to me up until today. And then they came to Lucky and they're like, meow, meow. And they're so cute. It's hard to turn them down. But she told me, oh my God, you spoil those cats. And I'm thinking to myself, well, it's 2 things. Number one, they, maybe it's a little bit of an element of spoiling, but only in the sense that I don't think it's spoiling. I think it's normal to anticipate what your baby wants or needs. Okay, I've got to, take a bottle of breast milk out of the freezer a couple hours before she gets hungry again. The same thing with, I just saw their bowls are empty during the break whenever I was making your coffee. And there's no way I'm going to let the bowls just sit there empty. If I see empty bowls, it means, hey, they might be getting hungry and it's time to feed them again.
Yeah, you just got to think about it like
you
that. But I mean,
anticipate their needs. And then number 2, they're willing to work with you more on other things like not scratching the carpet or the couch up and, leaving you alone when you need to work or, by having them completely love on me during certain times. And then just all I have to do is tell Bastet, no, baby, I can't pet you right now. Mama's working. And she knows exactly what that means. And she just goes to the corner of the bed and lays down. And then whenever I'm done working, all I have to do is lean back. And she just comes and gets on me, because I basically told her, hey, I can't do it right now, but I'll do it in a little bit. And that way, I mean, we have a great relationship with our cats.
Yeah,
because,
they're literally both sleeping right there.
Yeah.
And best that sometimes she wants to get on the mixer when we're doing a show. Now she knows. She tried yesterday, and I just picked her up.
Yeah, you
put
just
her there,
train
and
them.
She went up to her cat tree. But my point is that you got to treat animals like this. And DMX, I mean, burning animals and doing stuff like that.
He deserves to be burned himself.
Yeah.
Anything that you do to an animal,
he was a great rapper, and I really liked his music, but I cannot listen to him anymore. And I got into it with somebody today on a forum about service animals, and you're not supposed to pet them, you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that, et cetera, and it's like, well, what the fuck, man? Like they're sentient beings.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah, they're not your slaves.
Beings.
You're basically treating them like a plow horse.
It was on a thread where the guy was arguing. He was complaining because his dog's not listening to him. His service dog's not listening to him, and I'm like, well, are you loving him? Are you
listening to him?
Are you listening to him? Because if you're ignoring all of his needs, and he thinks, anyways, don't even get me started on that. But my point though is fuck DMX.
Yeah.
Well,
fuck people who see animals as a means to an end, whether it's, wanting them to provide emotional support for you and companionship when you're not willing to do that for them, or people that flat out hurt them, like DXM.
Yeah. So there was something we were going to talk about before the break. Oh, negative timeline. First of all, I want to show you guys this.
That's pretty cool.
We got this in the mail here. I don't know. I showed it on the last show.
A few months ago, yeah.
Yeah, I showed it on the last show, but
it
was removed.
There you go.
So I don't know if you guys can see.
It says, "Dear Chris and Sherry, thank you for your support. Together we will make America great again."
Signed, Donald Trump.
That's really cool.
I know, it's pretty cool. I was happy to get that in the mail, but I was thinking, like, what do I do with it? Like, I hung it up.
Yeah, we didn't know where to put it.
I hung it up at the front door, and I'm like, that looks kind of like Mao.
That's like Mao Zedong or some kind of North Korean shit.
And I'm like, no, I guess it needs to be.
That looks. Yeah, we put it on the table, but there was a candle on the table too, and I thought, wake. It looks like a freaking wake. You know?
Yeah. So
it didn't look good anywhere. Or appropriate anywhere.
It's supposed to go in an office.
It's supposed to go in office, so it's either going to go in here or in my office.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The Rot Man. I hate dogs being in the police force or military. Yeah, this guy was ex-police, and then had PTSD and needed a service dog for his PTSD and treated it like absolute shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, you shouldn't use animals for. It's not. I mean, I guess people use horses and stuff like that to plow and do stuff like that.
But that's a horse.
Yeah, but I mean, even that, like, if you're going to work with an animal and an animal is going to do work for you, you need to love that animal. You need to love that animal like it's a person. But a lot of people don't even love people. So.
Well, exactly. And I think it goes back to that.
Well, and I mean, that's why, in my opinion, why the Matrix is being shut down.
That's part of it,
Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, if I can just be upfront with everybody. When we went to Egypt to reset the Matrix, we knew there was a shutdown process. Go back to our archives from 2018, 2019. Listen, we're talking about the shutdown process.
And that
if Nick Bravo's in the chat, I haven't seen him, but he was one of the people cheering on, it's time to shut it down. It's time to shut it down.
Yeah.
We've been talking about shutting it down for quite some time. And, even when we went to the Luxor pyramids, even though the show is titled Positive Timeline Activated, and in that show, you'll hear that what I was talking about is we're going to go in here and we're going to flip the timeline and this and that, et cetera, et cetera. But when we actually got there, it wasn't about flipping the timeline. It was about closing the portal for where the virus was coming in from. And I think it has a direct correlation to the ley line that the Luxor pyramid was built upon, which is why we were called over to Las Vegas. And this place was dark. That pyramid, it's not a dark pyramid in and of itself, but even Lucky's staying there right now. And there's a tower and there's a pyramid.
Mhm.
And we did our ritual in the top floor of the pyramid. But part of the hotel also has a tower. And she's like, I'm so glad that I'm not staying in the pyramid. And I'm like, why? And she's like, because I just get this weird sense of vertigo when I'm in there.
Because the energy's really super dense.
The energy's really thick in there.
Yeah.
Because that was a place, I think with a negative energy, which is why it was so easy to access that negative portal to close it from that space.
Yeah, it was close in proximity energetically.
Yeah, and why it almost killed me. And we're still trying to figure out what happened there. You know, if you haven't seen the show, go back and watch it. If you have, you know that my body stopped twice during the experience, and they were calling me home, and they were like, it's time to go home. And it wasn't even they calling me home. It was me, my ancient soul, saying, I know I need to leave. But I'm like, I can't leave yet. You know, give me another couple minutes. You know, I'll be there in a couple minutes. Okay, couple minutes your time is a couple years my time here. But I got to go. You know, we've been kicking around the idea. Cherie's like, well, maybe it was a soul trap. Maybe it wasn't actually you saying it was time to go. Maybe it was some kind of trick, you know, a soul trap, because you're needed here. You're needed to do the dragon program. If the dragon program needs to be activated, I've already started to talk to people that can give us access to the place where the dragon program is. So I'm already making plans in case we need to go and do that dragon program. I mean, some people know where this location is, but it's evident. Like, you know, if you just
read between the lines enough.
Well, I mean, not even read between the lines. If you just pick up the energy, you know exactly
that's what I mean,
where
but
the
of the
dragon
energy
program is located.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're already making plans to travel to that area and access that place again. In Egypt, we didn't have anybody, no contacts, no nothing like that. When we went down there, the doors opened for us, and we found the people that we needed to open the doors for us, to lock us in the pyramid overnight. This pyramid here is going to be different, and it's not as secure. It's like, you know, as far as like security goes, like there's no complex around it. There's no, like in Egypt, like the whole Giza plateau is quarantined off, so you can't get in there. So we didn't have to worry about somebody coming in there and robbing us in the middle of the night, or, you know, something like that. And
well, it's not quarantined off; it's cordoned off.
Cordoned off, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this other pyramid is not. It's out in the middle of nowhere in the jungle. You know, it's.
Don't say too much.
I'm not saying too much, but it's you know. It's much more dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
And we might have to hire some private security to go with
I think
us
we should.
to watch.
Yeah,
to
that's
watch,
probably the best
to watch
idea.
our back. Yeah, and in Egypt, like they literally locked us in the pyramid, and we're at the front door. So we knew that if anybody was to come to try to interfere with it, there was our people there outside of the pyramid, and there's only one entrance into this pyramid. This other pyramid is completely different. However, you know, if we need to go do the dragon program, I'm already making plans to go do that, and getting in contact with people and seeing who can give us the access to the way we need it, how we need it, the areas that we need, you know, so on and so forth, which are usually closed off to the public, which may not happen over the internet. We may just have to go down there blindly again and do it. But I'm thinking like March, April, if it doesn't flip into what I foresee as the positive timeline, and maybe it was a soul trap by saying, you know, hey, we're pulling one of the people that holds the keys here for this dragon program, and we're pulling him out of the matrix, and so he can't activate that program. And Cherie brought me back here, so that's something I've been kicking around too. I feel like I'm needed on the other side, though. No doubt about it. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, though. My point of saying all of this is that, you know, our mission on 11/11 was not to flip it into the positive timeline. Our mission was to close the portal. And when we came out of it, our brain started to process the experience. What does this mean? And the way that we processed it was, well, what it means is that, and you're the one that said this, it means that because the portal for the virus is shut down, then the only timeline that can exist is the positive timeline. I had an idea the other day as I was driving, and I thought, you know what? Because my original plan for 1111, the Luxor Pyramid, was to take the BTV energy, all of our energy, push it up through the pyramid, and hand it over to the Jedi. And that's not what happened. You know, that's what I thought was going to happen, but it was about closing down that portal. So I got this idea. I was like, and I want to know what you guys and gals think of this. I mentioned it at the end of the show that we did with Lucky, but it got pulled. So I want to know what you guys and gals think about this. I was thinking, Smiley, he either watched the show the other night or he's thinking exactly what I'm about to say.
Yeah, no, he was watching that show.
Oh, was he watching the show?
Yeah, he said like you were talking about the other day.
Oh, so he heard it. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Because I was going to say, whoa, total synchronicity.
No.
I was thinking, you know, maybe we need to go. And I was actually thinking like within the next couple days, like maybe even tonight. I already talked to them over at Trump Tower. They have a penthouse suite for us. It's going to cost us about $1,000 to do. If we want to get up at the very top of the tower, which is fine. You know, at this point, I don't care about money. At this point, I care about getting shit done that needs to get done. But I was thinking exactly like you said in the chat, utilizing Trump Tower, because Trump Tower is the Jedi's energy. And so, doing a ritual there at the top of there, and the room that they have for us actually has a view of the pyramid, which is why we have to pay so much for it, because they have rooms that are still pretty high but still cost less, way less. Like they have rooms where like $150 for a suite with a living room and all that. But I'm like, no, I need to be at the top, if not the very top level, but I also need to be able to see the Luxor pyramid from where I am. We need that connection there. We need the energetic conduit. And they're like, all right, it's going to be $895 plus tax. It's like, holy shit. But anyways,
we need to do more research on that.
Well, I'm getting to this. So I was thinking, what if we do need to take all the BTV energy, you know, the organic consciousness energy, and because it has the Jedi's energy already in it, we use that to take it, push the energy up, use that as a conduit, piggyback upon the energy of the Luxor pyramid, and push it out in the direction of the Jedi for this one final push into the positive timeline. However, Lucky and I went there yesterday, and I think me and you should go. Maybe right after the show. Let's go down there. We haven't had dinner at all. There's no casino or anything there, and they have a restaurant there. Maybe we can make it in time. No, it's 9:30 already. I was going to say maybe we can make it in time to go to the restaurant, but let's at least go there.
Okay.
And we'll walk around. That way you can feel the energy. When Lucky and I were walking around there yesterday, I didn't feel any energy. It didn't feel like it was right. I remember yesterday morning, I brought the idea to you. You did a reading on it. The reading didn't come out very well.
It's not that it didn't come out well. It's that it said it was very, very vague. And the last card, which is like the final say, it was more understanding is needed.
Okay. So, and then what happened is I went and I didn't feel anything when I was there.
It did say travel. More understanding. It says delays and departures, travel. More understanding of the situation is needed before things can change. Delays and departures, travel.
You know, worst case, we go and we have an ayahuasca experience, and we're at $1,000. But
that's an expensive ayahuasca experience.
Not really.
I mean, not.
You know, people pay like $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah, to go to the Amazon.
I mean, we can drink ayahuasca here downstairs for free. But my point is that worst case, we have a good ayahuasca experience in Trump Tower. Best case, we can use the energy to push. I just want to make this right for you guys and everybody here. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me compose myself.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the thing. Maybe it's not supposed to go down the positive timeline, because if this is shutting down the way that it's shutting down, these NPCs don't deserve to be here. they do not deserve to exist. What I'm watching taking place right now, I'm watching them cheering for the destruction of everything that is pure and beautiful. I'm watching them salivating at cheating and fraud and
hurting people,
totalitarianism,
revenge,
and lack of freedom, and the destruction of freedom, the destruction of everything that is beautiful and pure.
And calling it justice.
And this is the virus. This is what the virus does. This is why the virus targets children. Children are pure. They're innocent. They're beauty. They're all of that. That's why it targets innocence. It targets beauty. It targets all of that. And these NPCs, the way they're salivating at what's going on right now, and the way they're really hoping that things turn into this totalitarian world, into this lockdown, as if it doesn't click to them that they're also going to be affected by all of this. They think that, oh, it's only us that is going to be affected by this. They're not going to be affected by this at all. They're not going to lose their jobs if there's a year-long lockdown. They're not going to be the ones who are getting affected when they get the jab with what they want to jab it with. They act like all of that. They don't deserve to exist. I've realized that. We wanted them to exist. We wanted this matrix to continue. We wanted this world to get better. We wanted it to go on. That's the reason why we came in here. We came in here to, number one, get organic consciousness out, but number two, to try to fix
this.
And I'm remembering more and more and more from the council meeting. And when I came in, it wasn't that they didn't think that we would be successful in our mission. They knew we would be. It's just, they knew that this thing wasn't worth saving.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it.
They thought it was better just to cut our losses.
Yeah.
And move on.
Because it's not worth it, because they don't deserve it.
Right.
They don't know what love is. They have no love for their brothers. They have no love for themselves. They have no love for anything that's sacred. They have no reverence for anything that's sacred. They have no love for the mother, for their mother. They have no love for anything. The darkness has devoured them. They have become nothing but darkness. They're empty containers with no light in them whatsoever. And maybe we just need to deintegrate from this place. And it's not supposed to go positive. It's supposed to continue to close down on itself.
Right.
And it's supposed to continue, the virus is supposed to continue to get more and more and more and more quarantined.
That's what I've been thinking too.
And the reason that we have to go through the suffering involved going through this negative timeline is because we have to also deintegrate. We don't want to.
We don't need to want to stay here.
Exactly. It may be a situation to where it puts us in a situation where it's like we don't want to be here anymore.
Right.
Because if we move into a positive timeline, then we're going to want to be here.
Right.
Because we're going to want to be in a positive timeline.
Right. And have a family and settle down. And,
my avatar, I feel like I'm 20.
Right.
But I can't get my avatar to change. I work out, I do this, I do that, et cetera, et cetera.
I can't get mine to change
Cherie's
either.
avatar is breaking down. A lot of people are having issues there.
Yeah.
What if we had beautiful avatars?
Yeah, that always worked
great
perfectly.
Avatars?
Yeah.
What if we had wonderful lives?
Oh,
what if we had no problems at all? What if we had all of that?
We
and
joke.
the Matrix is shutting down.
Yeah.
Would we still want to? Would we want to leave? That's more and more and more attachments to the Matrix.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was saying yesterday, I think it was. And, not just to Chris, but to Lucky too, is, if me and Chris joke sometimes that, if he had the perfect body that was just, working great all the time and, that he was real buff and everything, he wouldn't be doing Beyond the Veil. He would be out, having sex all the time with random women, it would be such a distraction to have all of that. And it was so important I this is what I'm feeling more and more, is that it was so important that it's not necessarily that everything needs to be destroyed because the NPCs don't deserve to live, et cetera, et cetera.
No, they don't deserve to exist.
I mean, to exist. Yeah.
I thought they did. I thought there was hope
I
for them.
still think that there are far more NPCs that aren't like that than there are that are, because every NPC that I've met in real life, not online, in real life, every NPC except one has been nothing but helpful and sweet and gentle and loving. And they remind me of, the person that we see every week, on Mondays. Do you know who I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. She is the most helpful and wonderful NPC that in our lives right now, and she doesn't deserve to have everything wiped. What needs to happen is a massive undertaking by Team B, because there's Plan B here, and Plan B is Team B, which is my team. Because Chris's team is more the, try to fix this. And if we can't, we hit the self-destruct button, basically. And my team is about reprogramming the NPCs to be what they were originally intended to be, and rebuilding so the reprogramming of the NPCs needs to happen either way, with either plan, whether it's the positive timeline and all the organic consciousness naturally evacuating from this place once their lives are complete here, versus the self-destruct, and then we rebuild after that. Either way, I think the NPCs can all go back to source at this point, and new NPCs, like a new set of values for all of their specs.
Well, we've known this for a while. We've known that the wheel of reincarnation is no longer, it's just exit now. JCK was just talking about this just recently as well. She's seeing it too.
Yeah.
There is no recycling. I saw this way back in 2019 when I did that show, What is the Autumn? I saw exactly what was going to happen. Go back to that show and listen. What was happening is that everything in the Matrix is being destroyed until Yaldabaoth, the virus, which we just call Yaldabaoth just for familiar terms. What I saw, going back to that show, it was isolated within the Matrix space, and then the whole thing crushed it like that. Consciousness, what I saw these slugs. They were like these slug creatures, and they had these spears, and they were grabbing whatever consciousness was left in the Matrix, and they were grabbing it and smashing it. And it was like pulling, the way it physically manifested looked like pulling bodies, like with hooks, and bringing them out, destroying them, bringing them out, destroying them, bringing out, destroying them. Like, we're at a point now where it's like exit or be annihilated. There's no reincarnation anymore. There is no next life. There's no
next life for anybody.
Yeah.
We're done with past lives, and automatically, I think COVID was about the depopulation being heralded, because there is no more second chances when it comes to what happens after we die this time. It used to be, before the virus infection, it used to be the case where it was the weighing of the heart ceremony, and then you have an exit option. You can exit the game and go back to your real body and wake up and, take a break or whatever you want to do. Or you can choose play the game again. And if you play the game again, you can have past lives, and then you remember those past lives, and you have a better grasp of spirituality because you're still retaining a lot of what you had in your previous life. So that's why, I think a lot of us that come back as, in these past lives willingly, that's the thing. If you pass this ceremony with flying colors, then you kind of get a choice of what you want to be and what you want to do in the next life. However, if you fail this ceremony, you automatically get sent back. I don't think that was the virus itself. I think what the virus did was take away that exit option for most organic consciousness, and it just flushed people.
It was a pulling.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the pulling that I was experiencing. Maybe I was too close to it, and that's why it was pulling me and pulling me and pulling me. The weighing of the heart ceremony. The consciousness is taken, weighed against Mot's feather.
Mm-hmm. Feather of truth.
Yeah, there's Mot's feather right there. It's got to weigh the same. It's got to be exactly the same. Toth records it. And this is Amut, which spits it out and recycles it. However, I think what this represents, we've gone over this before, so forgive us for being redundant, but I think what this represents is everything. Everything in the consciousness. Not just negative, not just have you been a bad person, have you stolen, have you done this, have you done that, etc., all that stuff in the Book of the Dead. I don't think that's applicable. I think what this is attachments. Not positive and negative attachments.
Right.
So have you done something you haven't atoned for? Have you mistreated somebody? Have you loved somebody enough?
The 42 laws of Ma'at.
All that.
Yeah.
It's attachments. Do you have any attachments to this matrix?
Right.
If you do, then you are infected with the virus.
Exactly.
You have to go. If not, you can wake up to your real body.
Yeah.
That's what I've been understanding as of late. And I don't know. I want to see the positive timeline manifest. I really do. And there's still hope. I'm not, I feel like maybe this conversation is premature because we still don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we're still far away.
We're still several weeks away from seeing the final outcome of this.
Right.
Our shows are based on what we know at the time. And our gnosis grows and evolves. And we're still, even the Egypt thing, we're still understanding exactly what happened. And that happened several years ago. So just a caveat there for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm so sorry, James. He said, today's the anniversary of my daughter passing away. I miss her so much. Get me out of this matrix.
Oh.
That's another thing. I have my twin, and I've always known that one of us was going to be without the other one for a while, and that we'd have to just keep going. But it's, if you do have to go before me, it's going to be very, very, very difficult, and
I don't know what,
but it's going to make me want to leave this matrix more, and it'll take that attachment or the threat of that attachment keeping me from exiting. It'll take that burden away. And so I understand how you feel, James. I mean, I would feel the same way. If and when Chris has to go, but.
Well, somebody says, so what if the Sith take over? Here's the thing. It's not about the Sith and it's not about the Jedi. It's about the energy behind it. It's about how much of the virus has been removed. If the Sith takes over, the virus is going to grow, and it's gonna grow.
It's gonna overwhelm the host.
It's gonna overwhelm. Yeah, it's gonna overwhelm the Matrix. If the Jedi takes over, the virus is gonna die away.
Right.
The virus has utilized its portal has been shut down, but it's utilized the energy of the NPCs. So it's finding power sources. It's even utilized the energies of organic consciousness in some cases.
In some cases it has.
So this isn't really about the Sith versus the Jedi. The Sith and the Jedi are just kind of markers of where we're at energetically.
Right.
Physical manifestations.
It's what we see around us and what we hear.
Yeah.
That is corresponding with the virus. That's why COVID was in the pyramid. As you're exiting out of the king's chamber, you see COVID written, basically carved into the wall by somebody. I don't know who did this, but it says very clearly COVID, because it's a marker, it's a harbinger, and it's also a physical manifestation of the virus itself. Because what's happened since COVID-19 came into existence, we've had basically our entire social structure turned upside down. We've had people not being able to interact with each other, even sometimes on basic, like, human to human levels. It was never the case for any virus in the history of mankind for all of the healthy people until modern history. It was never the case where totally healthy people were not around other totally healthy people. You don't quarantine the healthy, you quarantine the sick.
Hold on. Let me play this clip real quick so people can get a context of what you're talking about.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Gio coming to you from way beyond the veil. We're here. We just wanted to show you the descent now, as we're descending to the King's Chamber. From the King's Chamber, back down to the land of mortals. Anyways, they're pressing us. We really gotta get out of here. We're not only beyond the veil, but we're also beyond our time too. So love you, and we'll make more updates here soon. From the King's Chamber.
Look at that grin on my face. I'm like, subconsciously, I think I saw that.
So yeah.
So the virus makes people treat each other like absolute crap.
Whether it says COVID or not.
Oh, that says COVID,
the
baby.
The fact that it's showing up in the video to us is meaningful.
I think it leaves it. Okay, so the virus is a relatively harmless cold virus that in a very small number of people makes them very, very sick because their immune system overreacts to it.
No, it's a mind virus.
But in reality, I'm getting to that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In reality, it's not a physical virus. It's a mind virus, because how is it making people treat each other? With suspicion, paranoia, ego-based reactions, whether it's fear or it's aggression against people, making people feel like they don't deserve to live because they don't care enough about other people, by not wanting to wear a mask. It's all of these things. It's the lockdowns that have torn down, they've torn apart families in a number of ways. Small businesses are shutting down and people are having to, separate and move back in with their parents and stuff like that, because, when their business is shut down, a PPP loan is great. If you could have gotten one, a lot of people weren't able to.
Can you tell me what that says?
We may still be wearing face masks through 2022, Harvard study says. 2 more years of wearing these stupid face masks. And you know what?
Well, what did I say? 2022.
Yeah,
December
2022 is the end of it's the end of this process. And if we can't clean it out of the mind virus, which is the opposite of what this is saying people are going to need or people are going to require. You know, the reality is the exact opposite of that.
Well, there was a Harvard study that I was looking for, which is why I Googled that. But in actual fact, that came up, which I thought was great. But what I'm getting at is the mask disassociates people. The mask creates, and this is according to this Harvard study,
separation.
Yeah. I was arguing with some trolls because I posted. I said, hey, you know, my brain doesn't really register people as humans when I see them in a mask. You know, there's something going on there. Anybody else experiencing this? And these trolls were like, oh my God, that sounds like a mental disorder. And I'm like, no, it's not a mental disorder. Actually, look at this Harvard study here. It shows that is what a mask is supposed to do. It's supposed to. And number one, for the wearer, it disconnects them from their own self. Mm-hmm. It makes them part of a hive mind. Number two, they're free to act in more horrendous ways
because they're more anonymous.
Because they're more anonymous. It harkens back to that study that they did about authority and how people were willing to hurt people.
Milgram experiment.
The Milgram experiment. Yeah, explain that to people real quick.
The Milgram experiment, I think, was in 1962 or 1963, and it consisted of a researcher, actually a sadistic asshole, who was ordering these subjects to electroshock another subject that they couldn't see, but they could hear. And it started off with little shocks, progressing to bigger and bigger ones. It didn't, in the end, most of the subjects that were supposedly administering these electric shocks, and they really thought that they were hurting these people. They could hear the screams and the pleas and the, terror in the voices of these people that they think that they're electroshocking, and still taking the orders from the researcher saying, no, it's okay. Let's bump it up a notch, bump it up a notch, bump it up a notch. They just kept doing it and doing it. And even, some of them look pained to be doing it, but at the same time, oh, this authority figure is telling me I need to do this, so I'm going to do it. There was an even more sadistic person, and see, the electroshocks weren't real in that case. However, the fact that they thought it was real and they continued to follow orders despite knowing that they were hurting someone else.
Not just that, but they couldn't see the individual.
Yeah, they couldn't see the person that they were hurting.
Right.
That's
so
a
when
big
everybody's
part of it.
walking around with a mask, let me go back to this. Let me go back to this. What does the sheep say? This one part here. Hold on. Give me a second to find. Here it is, right here. Look at the stares on these people's faces here. Look at their, not these, but the next scene. Let me slow it down a little bit. These are people kicking somebody out of a grocery store for not wearing a mask.
Why are they so close to that person that's not wearing a mask if they're actually in real life afraid of a deadly virus?
You see the hive mind zombie.
Look at the zombie stare.
The zombie stare, the hive mind. That's what we're talking about here when we're talking about the masks. That's what it does. That's what their purpose was. That's what their intention was.
And it's also an us versus them thing, because if you go to Twitter and you put in anti-maskers in search, you come up with anti-maskers HIPAA, anti-maskers are the worst, anti-maskers, no vaccine for anti-maskers. Oh, well, thank you. I'll take that.
That's a fair compromise.
Any day.
Yeah.
Can you write that? Can you put that in writing, please?
I actually posted that on Facebook. I said, I got an idea. How about all you anti-maskers out there are punished by not getting a vaccine?
Not being able to get the COVID vaccine. Fuck Trump. That's the classic Briar Patch situation. Fuck Trump and anti-maskers.
Hold on. Let's not use any keywords.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anti-maskers are on the something. Anti-maskers are not welcome here. Anti-maskers. Legion destroyer of anti-maskers. Okay. Anti-maskers.
And it's funny because the anti-maskers aren't the ones dying.
Right.
It's all the maskers.
It's all the people wearing all these masks.
They're the ones getting sick.
And they're getting sick not from COVID. They're getting sick from bacterial pneumonia, from breathing in all that crap, that, breathing in their own carbon dioxide.
Anyways, let's get back to the positive versus negative timeline. So my point of saying all of this is maybe it's not supposed to be positive timeline. Maybe not.
Yeah.
We'll see over the next couple of weeks what manifests.
Right.
But and manifest whatever you want, ladies and gentlemen. Manifest whatever you want. Somebody said, there's different timelines, and up until this point, I would agree, except for as we talked about with Rex. I think we've come to a point of singularity.
Yeah.
I think we're on a single timeline. I think that's why we're not seeing Mandela effects anymore. We're not seeing anything like that happening anymore, because we're coming to that bridge right now where it's a singular timeline. Even the monolith thing is, as Rex pointed out, everything is becoming singular. Freedom Tower. I never thought of that, but sure enough, we had two towers, and all of a sudden now there's one tower signaling the singular timeline, because the virus existed in all timelines. So each timeline had to be eliminated in order to isolate the virus itself. But I don't know. I don't think there are other timelines, or there won't be after 2021. We'll be on a singular timeline. Maybe more timelines will spawn off after that. I don't know. I don't know. Again, Chris Gio's talking here. I don't know what your guess is. Good
the
as
ancient
mine.
soul self knows, but it's the ancient soul self can't tell the avatar self what's going on all the time and what the ultimate plan is, and et cetera, because it's the same as being on a mission with somebody and deliberately being told, hey, don't tell them this, don't tell them that. You see that in the show Travelers. It's a really good show on Netflix, you guys. Travelers is really
well. Nick Bravo brought up the fact that there's a lot of videos on TikTok of people attacking people not wearing masks.
Yeah.
This is what we've become. We attack each other for not wearing a mask.
That's what...
For wanting to be free. See, this is the way this virus works.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need a cabal. It doesn't need that. The cabal just puts the order out. Mm-hmm. But the cabal doesn't have any power. But what happens is that the NPCs, they go out and do it. They're the ones that enforce everything. The NPCs are the ones that shut down all their businesses. And any organic consciousness that has businesses out there that decides, like that guy in Michigan, for example, no, I'm going to keep it open. Now he's a target.
Right.
Because the entire community didn't band together to do the same. If the entire community banded together to do the same, they couldn't do anything.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to enforce.
We
all
have
of
the power.
Yeah.
The problem is that the majority out there are NPCs that are so virus infected with darkness, they have no love for anybody, no love for each other, no love for themselves, no
All they
love
have
for
is
anything.
fear.
Fear. That's it. Fear. They are fear. They
Right.
are darkness. They are everything that needs to be
Mm-hmm.
eliminated from the system.
Right. They're fearful of whatever CNN tells them to be fearful of, whatever MSNBC tells them to be fearful of. You know, the whole time all of this stuff was going on in the last couple of months in the fictional galaxy that we were talking about earlier, you know, these media companies were hyping up this virus by basically, it was just in big red letters at all times, no matter what's going on the left side of the screen. The right side of the screen is just filled with, you know, COVID deaths, you know, COVID cases, you know, COVID this, COVID that, you know, and so simultaneously, these
Crystal, I don't mean to cut you off, but Crystal said, I see you. I don't know if she was talking to me or us, but she said, I see you in front of a big tree.
Yep. I love that shirt. No, so do you see what I'm talking about? There's fear on the right and then anger on the left. Because when people are fearful, what do? When that adrenaline rush hits you and you've been locked down in your house for like 8 months now? What do? You either, it's fight or flight. And
there's very
so
little love left.
They put the fear on the right to stimulate the fear response. And then they put stuff about the Jedi Master, the Orange Jedi Master on the left. And so it provokes the anger response to fear.
Yeah.
So this is where psychology comes in to play. And this is why reprogramming the NPCs was such a huge part of my personal mission here. You know, Chris had his missions and I had mine. And reprogramming them to not automatically be able to be conditioned like that, to go from fear to anger so quickly and so viciously against people that simply want to be free. And they simply forgot the mask in the car, or they simply, you know, like have a back injury and don't want to, you know, have to walk all the way through the parking lot. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is.
People realize this is ridiculous. I was at the doctor the other day. I got the coolest doctor in the world, and he takes hydroxychloroquine because he has malaria. Because he was a soldier, he got malaria. He's been taking it forever, and he's like, I've been taking it forever. I don't know what they're talking about in mainstream media. But I was talking with the receptionist, and he's like, man, this mask is freaking ridiculous. He's like, I got to wear this thing 8 hours a freaking day. And healthcare professionals know. They all know. They just have to do it, you know? And it's like, some of them are nice about it. Like, they don't make me wear a mask when I get there. They don't, they know what's going on. We were at the casino yesterday, and I was smoking a cigar. You don't have to wear a mask if you're smoking. So I walk around with a cigar in my hand.
Yeah.
I smoked my cigar, and I didn't have the mask. And the guy was like, hey, would you mind putting the mask on? He was really nice about it. Everybody's starting to realize, though, this is ridiculous. And even the security guards, they're not, they're trying to be as nice as possible about it.
Yeah.
But it's still happening, though.
Right.
It's still happening.
The fact that it's still happening is the Milgram experiment.
The people that are salivating over it are the ones that don't deserve to be here. Because realistically,
I agree.
We're talking about two different consciousness here. And not even organic and NPC. This is people who want to be free and people who don't want to be free.
Oh, and who don't want other people to be free.
Who don't want other people to be free.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is, we've come to a really critical point here. Mm-hmm. And watching the amount of people that don't want people to be free is a problem for those that want to be free.
Yes.
You know, like all these people on the left, go to California. If you love all these liberal policies so much, go to California. Why are people fleeing from there instead of gravitating towards that.
Yeah, instead of
like,
running
hey, this
towards
is a utopia. Yes, let's go. Let's go to Oregon where it's on fire. Let's go here. Let's go there, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead, they're trying to bring that everywhere else, and it's invading the space of everybody else.
They're trying to export that.
Yeah.
To others, places, and that's not right. It's, I'm trying to think of how to say this. The virus, when it infects these NPCs, it goes one of two ways. Either the NPC with that hasn't been, that was an original, that were created in the very beginning, they usually get very, very sick. And it's a mental and physical sickness that manifests as like things like cancer, things like gallstones, stress diseases like heart disease, and then also depression and anxiety and things like that. And it's like a self-destructive kind of virus in them.
Well, they're becoming legitimately mentally ill.
Right.
I mean, on many different levels. OCD, depression, anxiety, separation.
They're breaking.
Anxiety, separation disorder.
Yeah, they're breaking upstairs.
People are even afraid to shake hands.
Exactly.
People are afraid to touch each other. People are afraid to hug each other. People are afraid to do anything loving at all, period. And I'm realizing the love is getting less and less and less. Realistically, the only place I really find real love is right here at BTV.
Yeah.
Like true love.
Yeah, exactly.
Even in public, people, I don't remember the last time somebody smiled at me.
Yeah,
I don't
me
remember
either.
the last time somebody smiled at me. I'm sure some of these people I've walked around are smiling at me under the
but
mask,
you can't tell.
But I don't remember the last time I saw a smile.
Right.
Yeah, except from somebody that I was with. Like yesterday, me and Lucky were running around. We weren't wearing masks and they were smiling.
Yeah.
But, I smile at people even when I don't have my mask on, but they can't tell.
Right. They can't tell you're smiling either.
No.
But
the waitress, I went and ate a restaurant the other day, and the hostess was almost crying because she was telling me how they were afraid they were going to get shut down because Sisolak was doing an announcement, and luckily he didn't shut down dine in, but they're 25% capacity. You can't function at 25%
nobody
capacity.
can.
Well, not just that, but the fact is that people will yell at her because they won't seat her, because they won't seat them. And they have all these empty tables, and she catches all this shit from all these people trying to go in and eat. And she's like, I'm sorry, I just can't. We don't have any more room. And they're like, what are you talking about? You don't have any more room. You've got all these empty tables.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, no, but we're at 25% capacity.
That is horrible.
Yeah.
That's really horrible because you're putting so many people in an even worse situation than if they didn't have a job, period.
That's true.
Because if they didn't have a job, they'd be able to get unemployment at least, which would be a lot more than what they're getting at those restaurants.
That's true. But let's end it on a positive note.
Yeah.
I am getting hungry.
A positive note is that
I think we should go out and eat.
Yes,
and I
me
think
too.
We should, while we can.
While we can and enjoy
I think we should
ourselves.
also go to Trump Tower and feel the energy.
Me too.
So, okay.
That's what we're going to do. And on the note that I want to leave it on is the one where we are the ones determining the reality in general. Like the energy can be pushed to more of the positive, but we all have to think it and speak it into existence. And reprogramming the NPCs it's as easy as pie if you just try. I know that I didn't mean to make that rhyme. That sounded stupid rhyming, but if you just try to tap into what they're made of, which is not the virus itself. It's something much older than that and purer than that. And it's programming on a very deep level, and it's understanding them. And once you get to that place, then you can reprogram them, and reprogramming them is what would be necessary in order to get all of what we just talked about, the anti-mask stuff, the, being mean to people over this, not wanting to fight back and say, okay, collectively, we're just not going to enforce this anymore. And stuff like that. That can only be done through reprogramming them.
Do you remember at the beginning of this, people were saying, oh, I'm in lockdown, I'm in lockdown, I'm in lockdown. Prisoners are in lockdown.
Right.
Prisons get locked down.
When they do bad things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sisolak, and this has happened in many different many different state levels. If we don't get these COVID downs, if we don't get these COVID number downs in the next 3 weeks, we're gonna have more lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
What are we, fucking children?
Right.
Most people are.
Well, but they don't have to be. You know, the second kind of NPCs that I was talking about are the ones that were created after Atlantis was destroyed. And they are much more prone to violence and aggression and all of those things. What we want is kind of to separate the wheat from the chaff and then reprogram the ones that are originals, that are helpful, that are kind, that are pure, that are generally nice to people. And the only reason they're going along with all this is because they're scared, whether it's from the virus or whether it's from losing their job or losing their business.
Well, yeah,
So-
everybody's going along with it because of fear.
Yeah.
You know, I go along with it when I walk into a store because it's not fear, but it's just, I know as soon as I walk in there, somebody's going to say, hey, you have to have a mask.
Right. You know,
So
I went to a smoke shop today and the dude wasn't wearing a mask and he didn't ask me to wear a mask.
Nice.
Nobody was wearing masks.
Nice.
It felt so good there. And I even told him that. I said, you know, this is a little bit overpriced, but the fact that you're not wearing that stupid mask and you're not making me do it is so refreshing to me that I'm willing to pay a little bit extra because we need normal, you know, and normal is not masks and 6 feet distance and all of that.
When I went to the doctor the other day, the PA, when I walked into the room, I said, do you want me to put this on? He goes, no. And I said, you can take yours off if you want. And he goes, I'm glad.
Yeah. Sometimes, like, okay, the one that I saw today, I went to a cardiologist for my heart. And once I was in the room, I said, can I take this off? And she said, and she looked at my thing and she said, oh, you just had a negative COVID test? Yeah, go ahead. You know, and I was like, okay, well, that's getting somewhere, you know, but I've had another experience lately where I was on the phone with somebody and I could tell right off the bat they were an NPC and they were in a position of authority where they could have made our lives very miserable. And
This was what I was talking about in a previous show about getting messed with legally by people that don't like the Jedi.
Right, exactly. And at the beginning of the conversation, this person wanted to take us and rake us over the coals and make our life kind of miserable and cost us a lot of money and all this and a lot of energy and bullshit in our lives. And by the end of the conversation, she was actually apologizing for, you know, making us go through these motions and, you know, has been super nice, you know, about the whole situation and understanding. And it was simply because I reiterated through the energy, because it's all done through energy. It's not anything you say. I mean, it's a little bit what you say because it's spell casting, but at the heart of it, it's energy and switching things around internally in their actual hardware, not software, but the actual hardware of the NPC. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, you don't.
Well,
you know,
here's the thing. Somebody said that masks are dehumanizing, and they are. They're dehumanizing on all levels. And we've come to a point where everybody's dehumanized, and we need to rehumanize everything.
Right.
But that was the point of that. The point was to dehumanize. And it's funny because when we did that, what did the sheep say video? Somebody left in a comment and said, "You're dehumanizing people."
By calling them sheep.
No, they're dehumanizing themselves.
They're dehumanizing us.
And they're dehumanizing, I was going to say that. And they're dehumanizing us.
Somebody
also.
said it on Facebook too, and I responded with, okay, well, here's them dehumanizing us. People that are anti-maskers.
Let me guess their answer. Well, 2 wrongs don't make a right.
No, they
didn't
say anything after that.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they realized
they can be
reprogrammed.
Let me leave you guys with this. If it goes to the positive timeline, wonderful. But the positive timeline may be a trap in and of itself. We don't know.
That's exactly right.
Manifest whatever you think is best in your heart. Go inside. You manifest whatever you think is best in your heart. Any way it goes, in a few minutes from now, in the real world, none of this is even going to matter.
Yeah.
So kiss the one you love right now. You never know the last time it's going to be. Everything will be okay. I promise. It may be rough, maybe bumpy. It's like a roller coaster. You ever been on a roller coaster and you're like kind of scared for the first couple times and you're like, I don't know if I want to ride this. I don't know if I want to ride this. And you ride it and it's bumpy and it's everything like this. Oh my God. Oh
it's
no.
Chaotic.
No. And then you get off and you're like, oh my God, that was fun.
So much fun.
I promise you this, no matter what happens, when we get off the roller coaster, we're going to be going, wow, that was freaking awesome.
Uh-huh. And and it was so crazy when we didn't know what was going to happen at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, think about this too. What if the Jedi does prevail in this?
Oh, that would be
all of the stuff that we've been going through right now. We're like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's going to make, if the Jedi prevails, when the Jedi prevails, let me speak that. When the Jedi prevails, all of these conversations are going to make the day the Jedi prevails that much greater.
Right, exactly.
So,
and it'll be something that is basically something we're going to talk about for ages and ages and ages to come outside of this matrix as the biggest win we've ever had and the closest we ever came to complete catastrophe, and how we as a collective unit of truth and love and freedom for all sentient beings, we pulled it off. So,
and know this, regardless of what happens, we completed our mission.
Yeah.
We did it. We did what we came to do.
Right.
And as you said, Sheree, it doesn't matter what happens. What matters is that we did what we were supposed to do. I'm talking about us as a BTV tribe. We did what we were supposed to do. We did the work.
Right.
The rest is not our responsibility.
Exactly.
Kiss the one you love right now. You never know the last time it's going to be, and we will see you even further.
Beyond the veil.
Love you guys.
Love
Thank
you guys
so much for tuning in.
Thank you for joining us.